Chapter 3053. However, the raven bone fan in Duan Yu's hand had already turned into a streak of light and transformed into a sharp sword, charging towards Feather's back with a terrifying demonic fire. If Feather wanted to dodge, he would definitely not be able to reach young Master Omega Kotoku in time. As a result, he could only grit his teeth and forcibly endure Duan Yu's strike. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived at Second Chin's side and reached out to catch more than half of the ink-colored lotus flower powder in front of him. His expression abruptly changed, and he spat out a mouthful of blood with a pft. His figure swayed. The second young master was not in a much better state. Although Feather had swiftly blocked for him, there was still a huge disparity between his cultivation and Emolien's. Even with Feather blocking in front, the remaining portion of energy flew towards him, causing his expression to turn unsightly. The instant he supported Feather and retreated swiftly, young Master Omega Kotoku whistled and suddenly threw out a transportation talisman matrix. That talisman matrix flickered, and the people in front of them disappeared at the same time. Emolien stopped after 2 steps and reached out to stop Duan Yu, who wanted to give chase. At this time, the dumbfounded Mu Xingqian had also rushed over with a pale face. He couldn't resist asking, "They ran away?" "They ran away." Duan Yu nodded and glanced at Mu Xingqian. "Are you alright, big brother?" Emolien instantly cast a glance at Duan Yu. This punk called him big brother so intimately. He really didn't freaking treat himself as an outsider. Arbor expressionlessly watched young Master Omega Kotoku and his group flee rapidly before shifting her gaze to Emolien and Duan Yu. She shook her head helplessly and inwardly criticized. Men are actually quite belligerent. While she was pondering, Emolien had already rushed to her side and picked her up. She looked at her strangely and asked, "Jojo, are you feeling unwell? Did those people from Omega Kotoku capture you? Did they do anything to you?" Arbor glanced at Prince Emo. "I don't think they would dare to do anything to me." "Then why do you look like that? What's wrong with my appearance?" The little guy snorted and raised his little head slightly. With a calm expression he said, "Isn't that good?" Duan Yu very shamelessly laughed out loud. Mu Xingqian, on the other hand, sized up Arbor with a dumbfounded expression and cried out involuntarily, "Sister, you, how did you do this? How could this be? Did they give you some kind of poisonous medicine that harmed you?" "Big brother, you can rest assured." Duan Yu snickered and interrupted the nervous Mu Xingqian. He said with a chuckle, "Based on my many years of experience interacting with Jojo, I can tell that Jojo is a very good person. This little guy must have made a talisman and cheated himself." Mr. Jojo looked at them expressionlessly. Mu Xingqian couldn't resist twitching his mouth and looked at his sister curiously. "Sister, is what Duan Yu said true? What the hell would he know?" Mr. Jojo harumphed haughtily. "Jojo, that time when you didn't recognize your family and didn't even recognize us, it couldn't be that you also used a strange talisman to turn yourself into that state, right?" Duan Yu suddenly felt like he had discovered the truth. Because he saw Mr. Jojo's increasingly stoic face looking at him expressionlessly. Based on his understanding of the little guy, even when the little guy's heart was crumbling, he would always put on a front. Nonsense. Mr. Jojo roared. Chapter 3054. Waving her small hand impatiently, the little fellow glanced at the sardonic Emolien. "Hurry and release my divine sense shackles." Emolien nodded and gently brushed her small head. Just as she was about to leave with her in her arms, she saw the native tribe's female leader jogging over. She knelt down in front of Emolien with a plop, repeatedly kowtowing and chanting some gibberish that people couldn't understand at all. Arbor's head was filled with black lines as he looked at that native tribe's female leader before looking up at Lien, who was hugging him. Prince Emo was unperturbed as he chattered with that female leader before turning to Duan Yu and saying, "They invited us to their tribe to stay the night." Duan Yu glanced at that simple and crude cave and nodded. "That's fine too." That female leader and her entourage appeared very happy when they agreed, and they kept chattering with Emolien in a strange language along the way. Emolien would occasionally reply to her, which made that female leader dance with joy. "What are you talking about?" Arbor asked expressionlessly. Could they not speak the bird language that Sir Jojo couldn't understand? Emolian couldn't help but want to laugh as she hugged Jojo and softly explained, their female leader is called Dawa, and that elderly man is their tribe's sage Hook. Cough, did they want to rob us just now? Ench? Arbor blinked, looking like a curious baby. The female leader, Dawa, had already finished reciting the words, this road is opened by me, but she suddenly became terrified. It was unknown why. Lady Xiao Xiao was still thinking that whoever dared to rob her, she would beat them up. In the end, her violent side did not have a place to show its power. When Emolian looked down at this Jojo, she couldn't help but recall the pile of babies moving gold ores she saw inside the Tower of Punishment. They climbed up the gold ores one by one, their eyes sparkling with the light of gold as their small hands and feet continuously moved the gold ores. So interesting. Her heart was about to be melted by this little imp. Emolian lowered her body and said with a smile, they came from the desert outside the Forgetfulness River and traveled all the way here. With such a large group of people, they naturally wouldn't dare to enter the city rashly. Arbor nodded. He knew very well that if these hundreds of people were to march into the city at the same time, it would definitely arouse the vigilance of the city guards. It might even lead to a large-scale conflict. They planned to stay at the Red River Tribe's place for a while and hand over the documents to the nearby cities. Because we're lacking in resources and this Red River Canyon belongs to the Red River Tribe, we have to pay rent to the Red River Tribe if we want to hunt anything. So they wanted to do a free trade. However, as soon as the trade started, I tore through space and appeared. Emolian muttered in her ear, the natives believe in the heavens and think that this is a warning from the heavens for their evil deeds. Arbor nodded. No wonder they all respected Emolian like she was a god. Could it be that they thought that Emolian, who tore through space, was an emissary sent by the heavens? How do you know the language of the natives? I don't know too much. Emolian winked at him and said with a smug expression, Jojo, do you admire your husband's ability? Sir Jojo nodded his small head. Emolian laughed. Did Jojo use a strange talisman to make yourself like this? Sir Jojo nodded his small head again and then suddenly reacted. Chapter 3055. Sir Jojo was actually tricked by Jojo's lotus. Jerk, how could he speak like this? One question was linked to another completely unrelated question, causing her to be unable to react in time and freaking answer truthfully. Such a deep trap, simply impossible to guard against. The little fellow scowled and leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm so sleepy I want to sleep. Too lazy to talk to you guys. She clearly heard Big Brother and Duan Yu's muffled laughter behind them. How could they be so loathsome? However, Emolian shook her with a smile. What sleep? We've reunited after a long separation, so shouldn't we have a good chat? How was it long? It had only been a day. The little fellow glanced at him. What do you want to say? Weren't you curious why hubby can communicate with the natives? Let me tell you, your husband has learned a lot since he was young. Prince Emo boasted repeatedly in front of his wife. I know everything from astronomy to geography, and I've read extensively. There's nothing I don't know. Sir Jojo pursed her lips. Go ahead and brag. Don't you feel awkward making yourself sound like you're omnipotent? What's with that expression? Prince Emo rubbed her small face. Why aren't you saying that hubby is so awesome? Sir Jojo was exasperated. She looked up at him and pinched his face. Cough, cough, cough. Mu Xingshan couldn't hold back his laughter and coughed to cover it. Big Brother, you vomited for a long time just now. Are you feeling better now? Sir Jojo turned to ask. Much better. It would have been better if he didn't mention it, because Mu Xingshan felt a bit awkward. After all, he actually vomited from the bumpy air when he thought of this. Mu Xingshan couldn't help but take a deep look at Emolian. This brother-in-law of his truly concealed his strength and was very frightening. The three types of power that wandered outside of the five spirits were the power of the dark netherworld, the power of deprivation bestowed by the gods, and his brother-in-law's power of nothingness. It was said that the power of nothingness could form terrifying flames of nothingness in the later stages, capable of incinerating everything in the world. Brother-in-law was already in control of the sacred fire, which was feared by many. If he were to comprehend the fire of nothingness, he would be unrivaled in the world. Sir Jojo moved his little hands and feet and expressionlessly said to Mu Xingchen, who was deep in thought, "Big brother, come here for a moment." Mu Xingchen hurried over. "Sister, what's the matter?" Mr. Jojo took out an antiemetic pill from his inner world and handed it to him. "Take it. You won't feel nauseous after taking it." "Okay." Mu Xingchen still had a headache and nausea, but he wasn't as dizzy as before. His symptoms were naturally caused by the tearing of the void. Not everyone could be as careless as Duan Yu, who was unaffected by the tearing of the void. The female leader of the natives stepped forward and bowed respectfully to Emo Lien before muttering a few words in her language. Emo Lien nodded at her and then said to everyone, "Their tribe's gathering place is just up ahead." Arbor lay on his shoulder and squinted sleepily. "I'll sleep for a while first." "Okay." Her current body was that of a 5 or 6-year-old child. Speaking of which, after this body shrunk, some of her bodily functions seemed to have returned to a 5 or 6-year-old child. It was truly worrying. That female chief muttered something, but Arbor had already blocked it. Chapter 3056. Sir Jojo was woken up by a series of noisy noises. When he opened his eyes, it was already dawn. Outside, many natives had already come out of their tents and were preparing piping hot steamed buns and rice porridge. The clamor didn't stop. Sir Jojo turned over and saw Prince Emo lying on his side next to her with one hand propping up his chin and looking at her with a grin. She rolled her eyes and expressionlessly turned over again, planning to continue sleeping. However, Emo Lien didn't let her continue sleeping. He picked her up and said with melancholy, "Sigh, it's really worrying that wifey has become so small." The little fellow's face flushed red and she couldn't say anything for a long time. "Jojo, what do you want to eat for breakfast?" "Shrimp dumplings and bird's nest porridge," the little fellow said expressionlessly. "Wow, hubby really understands wifey's heart. He's already prepared it for you." Although the little fellow didn't show it on her face, she was smiling on the inside. She pursed her lips and commanded, "Put me down." "That won't do. You're so short that even walking 2 steps is so slow. You're not even as tall as the basin rack. Hubby should wash you while carrying you. You're the short one. Your entire Mo family is short." Sir Jojo ridiculed in his mind and harumphed. "Put Sir Jojo on the stool." Emo Lien held back his laughter and nodded reluctantly. He still obeyed and fetched a stool for the little fellow and placed it in front of the basin rack. The little stoic expressionlessly started washing up. As she washed, she roasted in her mind. "If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have dug a hole for myself. Jojo, since you transformed into this appearance, why didn't you take the chance to escape? I was waiting for you." Arbor wiped his face with a wet handkerchief and casually tossed it into the basin before jumping off the stool. Emo Lien's figure flashed and arrived next to her. He stretched out his arm and pulled her into his embrace again. "Your husband prepared a sumptuous breakfast for you early in the morning. Are you happy?" Emo Lien carried her out of the tent with a grin. His footsteps paused, and he lowered his head to whisper to her, "Xiao Xiao changed her mind and stayed because of those people from Little Li Village, right?" Arbor was silent for a while, but he still nodded. "If I don't show up, Omega Kotoku will most likely bring people to massacre the entire village." "Oh, why do you say that?" Emo Lien's eyes flashed as she lowered her head to look at her little face. Arbor's heart tightened, and he felt that his voice was a little hoarse. It was because she understood Second Chin's personality better than anyone else. Back then, they had been together for such a long time. Bits and pieces of memories could be blurry, but some of the pain engraved in the bottom of their hearts could not be erased. She didn't want to lie to Jojo's Ren. She didn't want to lie to him about anything, so she said, "Didn't I tell you before that I had a very long dream?" Emo Lien's breathing subsequently tightened as he nodded his head. "In my dream, he was there, that person. In my dream, Omega Kotoku was a very stubborn person. Although I wanted to leave the people of Xiaoli village behind and escape by myself, it's not impossible. But in the end I still can't gamble with so many people's lives. I know that person's personality. If it was him in my dream, he would have attacked. He would not hesitate to use the lives of the villagers to threaten me. I also thought about it carefully. Should I leave all of this alone, or should I stay for the sake of those villagers I don't know? Chapter 3057. In the end, I followed my heart and stayed. However, if that person wants to use the lives of those villagers to threaten me, I can't guarantee what choice I will make. A large part of the reason she stayed behind for the sake of the old grandpa and Nyo was for the sake of these villagers. She was this kind of person. As long as someone showed her a trace of kindness, she would return it with 10 points or more. Moreover, she also had her own pride in her heart. She didn't want to implicate some strangers because of her. But now, something seemed to have changed a bit from her previous life. Sir Jojo blinked in confusion as he recalled what Sir Omega Kotoku said to him. No matter what the past was, at least now, I want to get along well with you. Could they really continue to get along well? Alright, Jojo, don't think about it anymore. Mo Lien gently touched her forehead. I know what you will choose. You little fellow who is stubborn but soft-hearted will definitely choose to stay. I will support you no matter what you do. Mo Lien shook her body and said with a smile, just do what you want to do. Don't go against your heart. Arbor smiled at him. Jojo's lotus was the best. It was so easy to talk to Jojo's lotus. Morning, Jojo. Morning, younger sister. Sir Jojo turned around and saw Duan Yu and Mu Xingchen coincidentally walking over from outside the tent. When they saw them, they waved and greeted her. Sir Jojo's mood instantly brightened up. Who cares about those things that haven't happened yet? Why should I care so much about them? Different situations call for different measures. She had many friends and relatives by her side in this life, so it couldn't be as desolate as in her previous life. Morning, eldest brother. Morning, Duan Yu. Sir Jojo expressionlessly waved at them. Do you want to roast meat? I can roast some for you. Mu Xingchen's eyes lit up, and he was about to nod with a smile when he felt someone poke his waist. Duan Yu said with a grin, "Ya, how could I let my Qiao roast meat? What's more, with your short stature, it's not convenient for you to do such heavy work. Jojo, leave the ingredients to me. I'll do it. You're the one with 5 shortcomings. Your entire Rong family has 5 shortcomings." Sir Jojo's stoic face was expressionless as he took out ingredients from his inner world and handed them to Duan Yu. He looked at him in confusion and asked, Duan Yu, is my barbecue really that hard to swallow? How could that be? Duan Yu blinked before turning to smile at her. Jojo's barbecue is delicious. It's just that you're so young now, so it's not appropriate for you to barbecue. On the side, Mu Xingchen put on an indifferent expression and glanced askance at Duan Yu. He couldn't help but chuckle in his mind. Your Highness, do you know how exaggerated and unrealistic your expression is? Sir Jojo nodded. Let me think. My roasted meat shouldn't taste that bad. Peach Blossoms and the others are fighting over the food I roast. Duan Yu's mouth involuntarily twitched. Just how much did the venerable Celestial want to die? Husband? Mo Lien coughed lightly and nodded in all seriousness. Jojo's roasted colorful divine fish is especially delicious. When we're free, I'll have Jojo roast it for you guys. I'm thanking your entire family. Duan Yu silently swept a glance at Mo Lien before carrying the ingredients to where the natives were gathered. When the native sage saw Mo Lien and the others coming over, he quickly stood up with his clansmen. Chapter 3058. The native female chief was deeply grateful, leading her clansmen to hurriedly thank Mo Lien and the others. Jojo, Darren, and the others naturally couldn't understand the native female chief, who was passionately chattering in front of them. Listening to the end, Jojo turned to look at Mo Lien. What did she say? She was praising your husband for his benevolence, for being the husband of the great divine province, and for having a beautiful wife, saying that the two of us are especially compatible. Jojo Darren looked down at his own short arms and legs, and couldn't help but chuckle in his heart. Her husband felt that he couldn't understand the native female chief's words, so he blindly translated it. With her small appearance, how could she be especially compatible with her husband, a match made in heaven? Did her husband think she was retarded? It's true. Mo Lien looked at her especially seriously. I never lie to my Chiao. I wrote a letter to the city lord of the nearby Spring City. In 5 days, they should be able to move into the city and settle down. Mo Lien said with a smile. So this Dewa and Sage are especially grateful to your husband. As soon as I told them that you are my wife, they naturally praised you to the heavens. Jojo Daren's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. Mo Lien continued, let's stay here for another day or two. This is the only way to the Sun Moon Temple. You can rest assured that Holy Sun Mi Yen will definitely pass by here with his people. Let's just stay here and wait for them. Arbor, so Holy Sun Mi Yen and the others were still floating in the Duchun River? Why did she suddenly feel that Holy Sun Mi Yen was a bit miserable? Jojo, what's wrong? No, cough, nothing. Arbor waved her small hand, and was carried by Mo Lien to the small table to sit down. Soon, a sumptuous breakfast was served. Arbor didn't have the heart to care about anything else, and focused on eating her shrimp dumplings and bird's nest porridge. As for Holy Sun Mi Yen, just let him float. 2 days later, the female leader of the Aborigines warmly received a messenger from Spring City. That night, she bid farewell to the Crown Prince and followed the messenger from Spring City, leading all the Aborigines to migrate to Spring City. On the 3rd day, close to the evening, this empty tent camp finally welcomed a group of old, weak, sick, and disabled people. When Holy Sun Mi Yen saw Mo Lien and the others, he let out a sigh of relief and said, Prince Mo. Prince Chen, you are all here? It turned out that these people were much faster than them. In the past 3 to 4 days, Holy Sun Mi Yen had been drifting on the Duchun River. At first, he swayed in the wrong direction and then turned back. After repeating this several times, he finally determined the direction. That was why he rushed over so late. Moreover, he had not been doing well these past few days. On one hand, he was worried about the whereabouts of Mo Lien and the others. On the other hand, he was worried that something might have happened to the temple. He firmly believed that the mutation of the Saintess had nothing to do with the temple. It was most likely that the Saintess had secretly joined some evil cult, which was why she got into trouble. How could such a mutated monster appear in their Sun Moon Temple, which was bright and virtuous? Impossible. Holy Sun Mi Yen led a group of people who had soaked on the river for a long time and finally climbed ashore with great difficulty. They walked towards Mo Lien and Duanyu. Thankfully, you are all fine. Everyone, take a look again and see if any of your companions are absent. We plan to rest here for 3 days, and then, Holy Sun Mi Yen paused, and his odd gaze landed on Arbor. He couldn't help but exclaim, You, how did you become like this? Chapter 3059. Sir Jojo expressionlessly glanced at Holy Sun Mi Yen. Who are you? Prince Mo, Duanyu, and Mu Xingshan couldn't resist twitching their mouths. This little fellow's tricks were quite deep. She pretended to be so serious, as if it was real. Holy Sun Mi Yen was evidently taken aback by this little stoic face, and he couldn't help but ask suspiciously, You? Aren't you Miss Chiao? Nonsense. The little girl's face was cold as she said indifferently, Don't try to claim kinship with me. I don't know you, we don't know each other at all. Holy Sun Mi Yen glanced at Prince Mo before looking at Duanyu and Mu Xingshan in confusion. You're the one spouting nonsense. Do you think I'm stupid? This stoic face of yours doesn't change no matter where you go. Do you think other people can't recognize you? Arbor. She hurriedly turned to look at her husband and asked with a straight face, Is it true? Mo Lien tugged at the corner of her lips. It was truly difficult for her to restrain herself, but she nodded. Sir Jojo reflexively rubbed his face, feeling melancholy and vexed. It was simply baffling. So it was like this? The reason why Sir Jojo could be seen through at a glance every time was entirely because this little face was stoic? Stoic? Was it really so easy to recognize a stoic face? The little fellow looked at the Crown Prince in bewilderment before glancing at Duanyu, who was stifling his laughter. She silently turned to Holy Sun Mi Yen and said, Holy Sun, your eyesight is quite good. Sir Holy Sun, fuck, Why did he inexplicably have the urge to burst into laughter? This child must be dim-witted. After being exposed, she still said such hilarious words. Arbor also felt a bit stifled. If possible, he really didn't want to talk to this holy Sun Mi Yen. The feeling of having your identity exposed at any moment was truly too unpleasant. Cough, cough, cough. Mu Xingchen hurriedly stepped forward to smooth things over for his little sister. By the way, Saint, have you seen our other teammates? At that time, everyone was floating around in the Du-Chun River, so we didn't have time to care too much. The Holy Sun looked at Mu Xingchen with a sincere expression and said, among your teammates, there are a few whose realms aren't particularly high. I reckon that they will float in the Du-Chun River for a longer time. Everyone was speechless. Is Lord Saint not joking? Mu Xingchen also coughed and said, since that's the case, let's do as the saint said and rest here for 3 days. Very good. The Son of God nodded and turned to look at Arbor's expressionless face. Miss Jojo, what are you doing? Why did it become like this? Arbor let out a long sigh. It's a long story. Go and rest first. Who told you that? Whoever said that was an idiot. Sir Jojo snorted inwardly and complained in a small voice. Emolian couldn't help but turn her head. She felt that this little fellow's act of pretending to be old was especially interesting. Holy Sun Mi Yen and the others were indeed extremely tired and nodded. Fortunately, this was originally a temporary gathering place for the natives, so they had set up quite a number of tents. They didn't take them away when they left. Thus, Holy Sun Mi Yen and the others had a place to stay. Arbor watched Holy Sun Mi Yen and the others enter their respective tents before turning to look at Emolian. Do you think he's pretending? Chapter 3060. I don't think he's pretending. Emolian shook her head and said, if he was pretending, then he could have hidden behind the holy nun when she mutated. I noticed his expression at that time. When he saw Nye Yaoguang mutate, he was more surprised than anyone else. From this, it can be seen that Mi Yen probably didn't expect this. When a person encounters a special event, their most realistic reaction will not be overlooked. Emolian recalled the situation on the Du-Chun River and said with certainty, at that time, he subconsciously fought with the corpse crocodiles summoned by the holy nun. Furthermore, with Mi Yan's arrogant and cold temperament, he should disdain to wallow in the mire with the holy nun. I think, Emolian said softly, he probably doesn't know. Moreover, he should be very conflicted right now. He must feel that something has happened to the sanctuary, so he rested for 3 days. Firstly, it's to wait for the other people stranded on the Du-Chun River to come. Secondly, he will definitely send people to the sanctuary first to find out what's going on. Arbor's eyes brightened slightly. Hearing this, he nodded and said, Lien, smart. Being praised by his wife, Crown Prince Lien, whose tail was itching to fly, nodded with a smile and said, that's natural. Your husband, I am extraordinarily intelligent. Then what should we do now? Wait and see. Prince Mo squeezed her small hand and indicated for her to look at the tent at the side. A priest lifted the tent curtain and walked out quickly. He nodded at the two of them awkwardly and then left quickly. Holy Sun Mi Yen also walked out. Seeing the two of them still standing outside, he couldn't help but be slightly surprised. Then he smiled awkwardly and said, we've been delayed for quite a while on the road this time. I asked Radiance to return to the sanctuary to take a look. I don't know if there's any change in the mystic realm. Emolian winked at Jojo. The latter nodded knowingly. With a cold expression, he said in a stiff voice, Holy Sun, please do as you wish. The saint snorted and said, let's rest. Arbor glanced at his back and turned to ask Prince Mo, what's wrong with him? His face was still fine when he came out, but now it had turned sour. Did he not want to see Sir Jojo? Emolian stifled a chuckle. He shook his head and said without batting an eyelid, the Holy Sun will feel uncomfortable inside when he sees us being so sweet. Why? Think about it. He's an old bachelor who has been single for hundreds of years. How comfortable can he be when he sees us tormenting his nerves? When Sir Jojo heard this, he nodded his head seriously. That's true. She paused and then said, then I'll try not to appear in front of him in the future. At this moment, Holy Sun Mi Yen, who was sitting in the tent, almost spilled the tea that he had just poured out. Who are you calling an old bachelor? Holy Sun Mi Yen gritted his teeth and stood up furiously. He flung his sleeves and walked out of the tent. He lifted the tent flap and poked his head out to take a look. There was no sign of that hateful couple. Standing in front of someone else's tent and calling him an old bachelor without the slightest scruple, only that wicked couple would do such a thing. Holy Sun Mi Yan's handsome face darkened. He slammed down the tent flap and walked in while panting with rage. He decided not to say a word to this couple tomorrow. Seeing them annoyed him. Chapter 3061. Arbor naturally didn't know what Holy Sun Mi Yen was thinking. After she was carried back to her tent by Mo Lien, she slept until the middle of the night. Suddenly, she was awakened by a familiar voice. Master, 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 ah. This demonic voice was her tree. It was her Chiu-Chiu. Chiu-Chiu was finally moving. The little fellow flipped over and sat up, her large movement instantly startling Crown Prince Mo, who was beside her, awake. What's wrong, Jojo? Prince Mo also sat up. A candle lit up in the corner of the tent, illuminating the little fellow's face. He originally thought that she was having a nightmare. Seeing that she looked normal now, he was slightly relieved. He asked softly, "What's wrong, Jojo?" Chiu-Chiu spoke. Arbor blinked and tugged at his sleeve. Set up a defensive barrier. Okay. Mo Lien waved her hand, and a defensive barrier was drawn outside the tent. The two of them then hid inside Paradise Planet. Looking at the lush trees, green mountains, and clear waters of the Star Sector, Lord Jojo breathed a sigh of relief. She had been on tenterhooks for the past 2 days, not knowing what had happened in the Star Sector. Chiu-Chiu? Master, master, master. Chiu-Chiu's screams resounded through the entire space. Those who didn't know would think that something had happened to the little fellow. Arbor expressionlessly walked towards the source of the sound. From afar, she saw that strange-looking tray ant jumping under a peach tree in front of her. It looked like it was having an epileptic seizure. It couldn't stop dancing. Xiao Mu gazed at it exasperatedly before looking up at her husband. Mo Lien chuckled. Reaching out, he picked her up and walked quickly to the little tree dancing crazily. What happened, Chiu-Chiu? Calm down. Master, Chiu-Chiu can't calm down, master. Chiu-Chiu suddenly turned around. Just as it was about to complain to its little master, it saw its little master's short figure. Chiu-Chiu couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Ah, master, why is it like this? How did you become like this? Who is it? Who did this to you when Chiu-Chiu wasn't around? Chiu-Chiu will definitely avenge master. Wah-wah. While the little tray ant was roaring, the little dirt lump, the little water droplet, and the rest of the little ones also swarmed towards her like a swarm of bees. They all gathered around their little master's tiny body to surround her. Sir Jojo stared expressionlessly at the tree that was howling like a ghost. After it finished howling for a while, he said with a stoic face, "Shut up." Everyone was speechless. By my Joe. A red shadow flashed through the crowd and quickly arrived in front of Arbor. He reached out and snatched her away. Holding her in his arms, he said, "Wow, Jojo, how did you become so small?" She was so small and adorable. Shichen smiled as he looked her up and down. "What kind of strange talisman did you use?" "No." Sir Jojo tried his best to maintain a stern expression. He waved his arms and legs. "Put her down." Prince Mo, who had his little wife snatched away in a moment of carelessness, hurriedly snatched his wife back. Holding her in his arms, he took a few steps back and looked at the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal opposite him with a wary expression. "Go and carry your own wife." These words were definitely hurtful. Everyone present was single. Not to mention a wife, they hadn't even seen a strand of her hair. Dao Wuji, who had had many wives in the past, felt that his heart had been pierced enough. Chapter 3062. Master. The sapling hastily called out again. It propped up its sapling body and pattered over to Xiaomu. It cried out tearfully, "Master, Chiu-Chiu might be dying soon." "Nonsense. Look, little ball's body has mutated. Master. Little ball has an eye on its body. It's so scary, so scary, so scary. The little guy was like a demon again. He kept saying the words, so scary, his voice lingering in everyone's ears. Arbor was really annoyed by his shouting. He clapped his hands and hit him on the head. Shut up, Master. Little ball looked at her pitifully and straightened his body. Master Jojo's height now was not even as tall as Little Tree. Little Tree Ant had an eye on its trunk. It was black and white, and it looked really creepy. No wonder Little Ball was screaming for help as if the sky was falling. This thing did look quite scary. Master, what do we do? Is Chio about to die? Little Tree Ant started to cry as he spoke. He looked at his little master with misty eyes and a pitiful expression. He won't die. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. Then, he pulled Little Tree Ant to his side and leaned closer to study the eye. Jojo. Mo Lien hurriedly reached out and pulled Little Tree Ant to her side. Her expression was serious as she said, "Be careful." They didn't know what the hell this thing was. It actually grew on Little Ball's trunk. It was as if it had grown in Little Ball's body from the beginning. Right now, it was peacefully closing its eye. There was a faint light in its eyes, and it looked at them with a scary look. Chio, this thing makes people panic. The little water droplet shuffled its small body and retreated behind Xiao Mu and Mo Lien step by step. Master, has Little Ball mutated? I won't. Arbor narrowed his eyes and stared at that eye for a long time. He couldn't help but hit his little head. What's wrong? Mo Lien quickly reached out and grabbed her little hand. I think. Arbor tilted his little head and looked at the eye on Chio's body. He thought carefully and said, I think I recognize it. Little Tree was a little excited and hurriedly asked Arbor, Master Silver, you recognize it? What is it? Do you know? Mag-Iris. Arbor murmured and could not help but hit his little head. I think I've seen it somewhere before. Really, Master? Little Tree looked at her hopefully and asked, Then do you have a way to take this ugly thing off my body? Xiao Mu shook her head with a stoic expression. My intuition tells me that you did this yourself. What? The Little Tree Chio's black bean-like eyes immediately rippled with steam. Master dissed Little Ball. Master said that Little Ball did this himself. Did this mean that Chio had sucked in this strange eye on its own? Impossible. Little Ball didn't remember anything like this at all. Wah. Little Ball suddenly fell to the ground and rolled around shamelessly. Little Ball can't live anymore. Master doesn't love Little Ball at all. Chapter 3063. Sob. Chio has eyes. Xiao Mu was exasperated as she looked at this little thing that was lying on the ground and fooling around. She glanced at it exasperatedly. The ground is so cold. Don't you feel uncomfortable rolling around? Chio doesn't feel uncomfortable. Chio only feels pain all over, and it's so unbearable everywhere. The little Tree Ant wailed as it rolled around Xiao Mu's feet, rolling back and forth. Arbor looked down at it helplessly. Get up first. Let me think about how to solve this. Master, you really have a way to solve this eye on my body. Chio sat up and looked hopefully at its little master. For some reason, as long as its master said he knew something, the little Tree Ant felt that its little master definitely had the ability to solve it. The little Tree Ant Chio had such blind faith in its little master. Arbor waved at her and simply sat down on a stone bench under the peach tree. The little Tree Ant Chio hurriedly trotted over with a fawning expression. Master, have you thought of anything? The little master said it recognized this eye and even knew its name, so it must have really seen it before. Arbor thought carefully for a while, then looked up and down at the eye for a long time before saying mildly, This should be a tree seed. What? Chio squealed, then shook its head like a rattledrum. Impossible. Arbor didn't give it a chance to continue deceiving itself and said mildly, No tree seed can hurt you. You know that. You must have felt that this tree seed was useful, so you sucked it in. Chio, Master, what kind of expression is that? Is it really appropriate for you to look at Chio with such disdain? Arbor looked at it mildly. It's especially appropriate. She could now guarantee that this tree seed was sucked in by Chiuchiu, who had courted death. And it had been sucked in through her conscious. So she vaguely felt a sense of déjà vu. He couldn't quite remember where he had gotten this tree, but he could still vaguely recall the name Magic Eye. Little Tree looked at her pitifully. Master Silver, there's really no way to save Chiuchiu. Chiuchiu now felt that the half-dead Rinna's eye on its body, which was rolling its eyes, was truly frightening. It could not even accept looking at it, much less going out to meet others in the future. Sob, sob. Master, think of a way, think of a way. Little Tree hugged her and wailed loudly. She felt particularly miserable and pitiful. There was actually such a thing growing on her body. Just looking at it made her feel disgusted. Is this the reason why I lost contact with you these past few days? Chiuchiu nodded vigorously. Master, it's all because of these eyes. When I realized that something was wrong, the entire star field was no longer under my control. This demonic eye was truly surprising. Arbor reached out a finger and boldly stroked that eye on Little Tree's body. That single eye with distinct black and white blinked quickly. The white of the eye rolled up, and the dim light swept across Arbor deeply. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. Only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief. Miss Chiao's hand had reached out extremely quickly, and no one had been able to stop her. Chapter 3064. Therefore they were really shocked. At this moment, everyone was looking at this little girl with disapproving gazes. Truly too unreliable. How could he be so bold and reckless? Wasn't she afraid that this supercilious person would open its eyes and swallow her small hand? Evidently, Arbor didn't think that this weird-looking supercilious person in front of her would attack her at all. In fact, after her small hand reached out to stroke it, she could still feel this Little Tree's jubilant mood. The little stoic pursed her lips and glanced at Chiuchiu, who was still lying on the ground hugging her leg. Get up. Master, Chiuchiu thinks that Chiuchiu can still be saved. Master, save Chiuchiu, save Chiuchiu. The little stoic chuckled. Since you created it yourself, you have to take good care of it in the future. Chiuchiu stared flabbergasted at its little master. Wah wah wah, little master didn't love it anymore, little master really didn't love it anymore. Not only was little master dissing it now, but she was also saying such resolute words to it. Wah wah wah, little master, all right. Arbor looked at it expressionlessly and said, get up first. Won't get up, Chiuchiu won't get up. If master still doesn't save Chiuchiu, Chiuchiu won't get up for the rest of my life. Then continue lying down. The little stoic turned around and broke into a run. We're busy outside, so we're going out first. Wah! Chiuchiu let out an earth-shattering wail and pounced on Arbor's leg. Master! Save Chiuchiu, save Chiuchiu. Arbor looked at this little guy with a dark expression. Why did she feel that this lousy child was so funny? Mo Lien also looked at it speechlessly. Although Chiuchiu's usual behavior was a bit unreliable, it had never been as anxious and uneasy as today. It could even be said that it was fretful, master. All right. Arbor picked it up from the ground and said earnestly, don't look down on this little tree. Look, it's now growing on your trunk. It's like you have an extra eye. The little tray ant stared at its little master, flabbergasted. Master, if you have an extra eye, wouldn't you become a monster? Arbor pursed his lips and glanced at it with disdain. You're a tree that has become a spirit. You can jump, run, and sing. You've been a monster for a long time. Everyone was speechless. Ha! Dao Wuji laughed out loud. Damn, listening to the conversation between the little girl and the tree, why did it feel so funny? The little tray ant exclaimed and was about to continue howling. Arbor pressed down on its mouth. Alright, think about it. From now on, you'll have another little brother. Isn't that great? Chiuchiu looked at her with tears in its eyes. Master, is there really no way to save him? Arbor's mouth twitched. To be honest, it's quite difficult to save him. Look at this white-eyed Ren. He's already fused with your wood spirit's original source. It can be said that he's living by attaching himself to you and hasn't offended you or provoked you. You can't dig him out and let him die for no reason, right? We'll get used to it when we see it. Arbor rubbed Chiochio's Traiant head hard. Don't be afraid. Master is here. Chiochio drooped its little head and looked listless. Chapter 3065. Chiochio. Arbor wanted to tease this little fellow, so he took out a pill from his inner world and handed it to Chiochio. Here, this is Master's new spirit intensification pill. It's good for you. In the future, you don't need to chew on that tough spirit jade anymore. With the spirit intensification pill's assistance, you can advance faster in the future. Chiochio rolled and crawled up from the ground, hastily reaching out to take the spirit intensification pill from little Master's hand. Blinking its eyes, it asked, Master, then what should I do in the future? What do you mean what to do? Chiochio forced a bitter expression and looked at the little stoic tearfully. There's an eye on my stomach. It pointed at the magic eye tree species on its tree trunk that was rolling its eyes. I'll definitely be laughed at to death if I walk out. Arbor coughed lightly and took out a small red doo-doo from his inner world, beckoning Chiochio over. Chiochio hesitated, feeling like something bad would happen if it walked over. Seeing its hesitation, Arbor couldn't resist giving it a sidelong glance. Hurry over. Oh. Chiochio shuffled over to Sir Jojo and its eyes swiveled. Master, what do you want to do? Master wants to make you a small garment. This way, it can cover the white eye on your stomach. Chiochio! Exclamation point. Its branch pointed at its own tree trunk, then pointed at the large red garment in Arbor's hand, and it let out an earth-shattering shriek. Master, you want you to wear this? Cough. Mo-Lien couldn't resist coughing softly. Jojo, holy child Mi-Yen is walking towards our tent. Okay, hurry and leave. Arbor shook the small red doo-doo on his body and helped Chiochio wrap it around the tree trunk. He patted its head and said with satisfaction, Looks good. You earned Chiochio. This was originally meant for my child. I'll let you wear it first. Child? Everyone couldn't resist looking at her simultaneously. It turned out that Sir Jojo had already thought this far ahead. Was she already secretly sewing children's clothes? Arbor's little hand paused. He raised his hand expressionlessly and patted Chiochio's little head. All right, you're a boy. You have to be strong. Don't make a scene and roll around on the ground. Chiochio lowered his head and looked at his little red doo-doo. Although the whites of her eyes were covered, what about the crimson red undergarment? Would it be too much? It was a mistake. But this should have been personally made by Master, right? Looking at the crooked stitches and the black lotus embroidered on it, it was obvious that this was the Master's signature work. It's better to wear it. I don't want to destroy Master's heart. Mo-Lien held the little fellow's hand as they stepped out of Paradise Planet and back into the tent. She reached out and hugged her, rubbing her head against the top of her head. Jojo, you might laugh at me if I tell you. The little guy lowered his head and rubbed his toes on the ground. I feel like I missed out on too many things in the past. In this lifetime, I want to experience all of my life's experiences. I don't want to leave behind any regrets. Mo-Lien reached out and cupped her little face. He lowered his head and gazed deeply at her, smiling slightly. You definitely won't miss out on anything again. Crown Prince, Crown Princess. The moment Holy Sun Mi-Yen lifted the curtain, he saw the two of them looking at each other like they were abusing dogs. He was immediately stuffed with a mouthful of dog food, feeling stifled and having a heart attack. Chapter 3066. It was him who was blind. He came in for no reason to make his presence known, but in the end he was forcefully stuffed with dog food. Poo. Holy Sun Mi-Yen kept a straight face and tried his best to keep a straight face as he said aloofly, The two of you, I have something important to discuss with you. Please come out. After saying that, Holy Sun Mi-Yen turned around and walked out, slamming down the tent's curtain with a crash. Xiao Qiao raised her head and looked at her husband. What happened to him? The old illness of a century-old lonely old man flared up. Crown Prince Mo whispered into her ear before sneaking a kiss on her small cheek with a smile. He then pulled her small hand and walked out of the tent. Xiao Qiao, when we return to the capital, it will be almost time for the wedding. What present do you want? Sir Jojo reached out and gently placed her hands on his cheeks. She looked at him with shining eyes and said, "How about a little Lien Lien who looks exactly like you?" Ha! Prince Emo guffawed. Holy Sun Mi Yen, who was sitting in the tent next door, could hear the two's hearty laughter. He pursed his lips and muttered, laughing for no reason. Duan Yu sat across from Holy Sun Mi Yen with a teacup in his hand and asked with a grin, "Is Lord Holy Sun jealous?" "Why would I be jealous?" Holy Sun Mi Yen irritably retorted. When he looked up and saw Emolien walking in with Arbor in her arms, he coughed and said, "All right, since everyone is here, let's talk business. It's not a good idea for us to keep waiting here. I plan to organize a few people and head to the mouth of Dukhun River to search for the others. What do you guys think?" "I have no objections," Mu Xingchen said aloofly. "I also have no objections." Duan Yu shrugged. "Right now, let's try to piece together a list of the people who aren't present and see how many people we need to search for. There's no need to search for my little companions." Arbor said aloofly, "I've already contacted them. They'll arrive around this evening." Holy Sun Mi Yen turned to glance at her and nodded. "Then we don't need to care about the people from Seekong Planet. The people from Fire Smelting City and Ice Sealed City were also settled. The rest of you, take a look and see how many of your companions are not here yet. Everyone is talking at once." Holy Sun Mi Yen draws up a list of names. When he is done, he puts down the pen and blows the ink on the paper dry. According to the list, there are still more than 10 people from Flying Sword Academy, Blue Ocean Academy, and Hong Mansion Academy who haven't arrived yet. In addition, Mu Rochuan of the Mu family is still missing. "Miss Jojo, are you going to look for Miss Mu?" Arbor glanced at Holy Sun Mi Yen coldly. "The world is so big. Where can you find her? The matters of the Mu family have nothing to do with me. Don't look for me." This Sir Holy Sun really touched a sore spot. Emolien glanced at him dryly. "Holy Sun, we aren't even on the same team. Where is young Master Mu?" Holy Sun Mi Yen looked at Mu Xingchen again. Mu Xingchen stealthily peeked at Arbor as if he wanted to say something. "Eldest brother, go look for her if you want." "No need to look at me," Arbor said aloofly. "Lien and I will not participate in the search and rescue." After saying that, he hopped down from Emolien's lap and stomped out with his back straight, slamming the curtain behind him. Mu Xingchen sighed. He also knew that the knot between Jojo and the Mu family couldn't be resolved so quickly. Everything could only be done slowly. "I'll participate," Mu Xingchen said. Chapter 3067. Lady Jojo returned to her tent, kicked off her shoes, and climbed onto the soft couch. She sat there cross-legged, unmoving like a mountain. "Jojo." Emolien lifted the curtain, walked in, and sat down next to her. "Jojo, are you unhappy? Are you angry with Big Brother?" "I'm not angry with him." Arbor sat up straight, looking at Emolien with a straight face. "I know. He's lived with that mother and daughter since he was young. It's impossible for him to change his mind so quickly. Moreover," Arbor said mildly, "he was raised by that woman. After so many years together, he should have some feelings for her. That he can't let go of his sister shows that my big brother values relationships. Why should I blame him?" Emolien leaned closer to her and reached out to pull her into his arms. "My Jojo is so sensible." Arbor tilted her head and glanced at him. She couldn't help but secretly find it funny. This man always used the tone of coaxing a child to coax her. "Since you're not angry, let's find Big Brother for a meal later." Although Big Brother promised Holy Sun to go with her to search and rescue at Duchun River, I'm sure he's feeling uneasy right now. "He's worried that you're angry." Arbor put down her two short legs and nodded. Emolien chuckled and hugged her onto his lap. "Jojo is so obedient." Holy Sun Mi Yen watched as Arbor and Emolien left after sitting for a while. He couldn't help but turn to look at the others helplessly. "Then what does everyone say? I think we should split into 3 teams and concentrate on searching for them once. It'll be good if we can find them. If we can't, we'll rest for a day after returning and then set off." "Okay." No one had any objections and nodded in agreement. Eldest young master, why hasn't your second young master arrived yet? Holy Sun turned to look at eldest Qin and asked with a puzzled expression. Omega Kotoku's cultivation was one of the more prominent ones among the group. At this moment, even the few seniors from the royal school, such as Dao and Turnbull, had already arrived at the campsite. It would be unreasonable if they did not see the Omega Kotoku. Duan Yu involuntarily snorted when he heard this. Second young master? There's no need to wait. Eldest young Sir Qin's gaze swept over Duan Yu as he asked in confusion, Has your Highness Prince Chen met my younger brother before? Not only have we seen them, but we've also chased them away. Everyone looked hesitant. Your good little brother rushed to the Red River Canyon before us and caught Jojo. Duan Yu said apathetically, If we hadn't chased after them, perhaps Jojo would still be suffering in your younger brother's hands right now. How is that possible? Qin Xian could not help being shocked. Is what you said true? Absolutely true, absolutely not false. Duan Yu coldly replied, Second young master's actions truly make one's hair stand on end. Eldest young Sir Qin, as his biological older brother, you still need to properly discipline him in the future. Qin Xian was at a loss for words, and he did not know how to respond. Seeing Duan Yu stand up, Qin Xian also stood up and cupped his hands. Apologies, Your Highness, I didn't know there was such a thing. Then does Your Highness know where my younger brother went? Duan Yu turned around, and his pair of chilly peach blossom eyes gazed deeply at Qin Xian. He escaped using a transportation talisman matrix. Eldest young sir, you really need to restrain your younger brother's actions. Mu Xingxian also said indignantly. Chapter 3068. If it weren't for Prince Mo and His Highness Prince Qin arriving in time, who knows what would have happened? Apologies. Qin Xian awkwardly glanced at Duan Yu and Mu Xingxian. I will definitely explain this matter clearly to him. Duan Yu parted the curtain with one hand. When he bent down to leave, he glanced back at eldest young Sir Qin with a spurious smile. How confident do you think he is in blocking Mo Lien and me by himself? Next time? You might not even have the chance to see him again. Duan Yu meaningfully glanced at Qin Xian before tossing the curtain aside and swaggering off. Qin Xian felt a chill run down his spine. In other words, did Duan Yu hold back a bit this time? Otherwise, perhaps his second brother wouldn't even have the chance to escape using the transportation talisman matrix? When he thought of this, Qin Xian couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He stood up and cupped his hands at the Holy Sun. Apologies, Holy Sun. Our Qin estate won't be participating in this operation. The Holy Sun nodded. Knowing that he was in a hurry to return and contact his second young sir, he tactfully didn't insist on eldest young Sir Qin staying behind to participate in the search and rescue. Then let's split into teams. The Holy Sun said to everyone present, We'll set off early tomorrow morning. At 10 o'clock in the evening, just as the little stoic said, Qi Xuanxuan's group, Doya, Hidden Flower, and Sui all arrived at the campsite. Aside from them, several students from Blue Ocean Academy and Flying Sword Academy also came. Madame Goen limped over with the support of the robust man, Huang Yang. Her complexion was still a bit pale, probably because she suffered a minor injury in the Du Chunjiang. It's good that everyone is fine. The saint looked at the crowd that had just arrived and nodded. Go wash up first and rest for a while. Come out for a meal later. Thank you. Madame Goen was about to cry. She felt that she was simply unlucky. After drifting in the Du Chunjiang for so long, she was about to rot and stink from soaking. Originally, as a level 12 great spiritual master, it wasn't a problem for her to not eat for several days. But now, she urgently needed to replenish her energy and strength. It was truly too bitter. Jojo, you've soaked me so much that I'm turning green. Qi Xianxian jogged over and pulled her hand. Luckily, we have water, meat, and steamed buns in our inner world. At least I won't starve myself. Arbor couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He looked at her in amusement. No wonder you haven't lost weight. Bubbles even gained weight. What? Did I gain weight again? Qi Xianxian quickly pinched her cheeks and exclaimed, I'm almost catching up to Fatty. Alright, go wash up first. You're stinking and you're still holding on to Jojo. Everyone was noisy as they each found an empty tent and went to take care of themselves. Little junior sister, let's talk after I clean it up. Liang Qingqing was also disgusted by herself. She quickly waved at Jojo and went into the tent. Xiao Mu swept her gaze over them, and when she saw that everyone was present, she relaxed. Now, she wasn't even bothered by how everyone could recognize her at a glance. In any case, she knew that no matter what she changed into, she would still be recognized at a glance by people with her stoic face. Jojo. Eldest young Sir Qin slowly walked towards her and nodded slightly at Emolien. Let's talk, okay? Chapter 3069. Arbor nodded. She didn't have much resistance towards Qin Xian. The little fellow looked up at Emolien, who nodded slightly at her. Go on. The two circled around the crowd and strolled to the cliff behind the tent area. Lady Qiao Qiao jumped onto a crimson-red rock at the edge of the cliff. She looked at the vast expanse of rock in the distance. There was only a meandering stream of crimson water in the narrow canyon. It flowed along the shallow ditch and gradually extended into the distance. Apologies. It's not your fault. You've become like this? Is it because of him? Arbor gazed into the distance and sighed softly. Sort of. Qin Xian glanced at her. Jojo, did something happen between you and Ixin that we don't know about? No. Arbor turned to meet his eyes. Nothing happened. I can't give him any emotional response. If possible, she wanted to stay far away from this person for the rest of her life. It would be best if they never met or had any contact with each other. I killed his doppelganger. Your father sent someone to kill me and beat me to the point of vomiting blood. Even if we're even now, I won't continue to pursue the matter. Second young master and I will go our separate ways. Whatever we were in the past will remain the same in the future. We will always be strangers. This identity will never change. Eldest young master Qin gazed deeply at her. Xiao Qiao, do you know that sometimes your heart is scarily colder than anyone else's? I just don't want to have too many inexplicable connections with irrelevant people. In this life, you are you, and I am me. Wasn't it good to be strangers and not owe each other anything? The night wind blew through her hair. She was a small person, standing on the tall, cold red rock, looking into the distance at the valley below. In the depths of his eyes, there was a coldness that could not be melted, as well as indifferent and emotionless. I will have a good talk with second younger brother. A stream of water shot out of Arbor's hand and turned into an ice arrow in the blink of an eye. It landed on the opposite rock with a whoosh. She looked at the rock that was so big that two people couldn't even wrap their arms around it, and it suddenly crumbled into powder in front of her. Xiao Mu's lips curled up. Things are different now. Just because it was like that in the past doesn't mean that it will be like that in the future. We're strangers to begin with, so there's no need to act like we're close. I hope that the next time we meet, second young master will turn a blind eye to me. That would be the greatest wish of my life. They were no longer related to each other. These 4 words sounded simple, but it was heart-wrenching to hear them. Night fell. A cold wind blew across a lonely mountain range. A small flame lit up in front of Qin Xian. On the communication jade talisman in her hand, faint words were floating. A man in plain clothes with long hair draped over his shoulders and a face so gentle that it was almost impossible to tell if he was a man or a woman, slowly walked towards him. Her palm-sized face without heavy makeup was abnormally pale. Why did you choose to retreat? Qin Xian coldly curled the corners of her lips and looked down at that person. This time, I want to use my patience to influence her. There was no use in forcing her. That little fellow was a tough nut to crack. Forcing her would only result in a life and death struggle, with both sides suffering losses. It wouldn't benefit him at all. Have nothing to do with you? Young Master Omega Kotoku's lips curled into a faint sneer. Don't even think about it. Chapter 3070. Wow, today's weather is finally clearing up. As soon as Qi Xianxian lifted the tent flap, She stretched lazily and called out to the little fatty in the distance, "Little fatty, what are you busy with?" The little fatty turned around in front of the propped-up pot with a spatula in his hand. He waved it at them. "Hey, this is the nourishing porridge I cooked early in the morning. It's done, so you can come over and eat." I've been floating on Du Chun River for 2 days. It really makes me want to throw up every day. It's great to have hot porridge to eat. Qi Xianxian quickly walked up and took out a small bowl with a grin. "Where are Jojo and the others? They haven't woken up yet?" "They woke up early. They went to scout nearby." Cough. Qi Xianxian almost choked on the hot porridge. "What time?" No, they just went to observe the terrain nearby." When the little fatty looked up and saw Liang Qingqing and the others coming out of their tents one after another, he quickly greeted them enthusiastically. "Miss Qingqing, Brother Situ, come and eat porridge. I cooked quite a lot." "Little fatty, you're truly becoming more virtuous." Qi Xianxian carelessly touched little fatty's chubby face, causing little fatty's face to turn red. When Arbor returned, she saw everyone eating happily around the pot. Her eyes brightened, and she quickly ran to their side. When Qi Xianxian and the others saw the little stoic returning, they hastily made room for her. "Jojo, what are we doing today?" "Nothing, we're just resting in the camp." "That's great." Sidu-yi couldn't resist ridiculing. "Soaking on Du Chun River is unbearable. Resting for a day is also good." "Alright, why were you guys in the river for so long?" When Arbor said this, she felt that something was amiss. Because she was especially fast in the river and could travel more than 500 kilometers in a day, she ran far away by herself, and Mo Lien, Duan Yu, and the others tore open the void to chase after her. Both of these situations were too abnormal. On the other hand, Qi Xianxian, Sid Yi, and the others drifted over at a normal speed. "Hey, don't mention it. Speaking of this," the little fatty couldn't help but want to complain, "we can't even fucking differentiate between north, south, east, and west in the river. Who knows if we drifted in the wrong direction in the beginning?" Fortunately, we managed to return safely. City smiled and said, "By the way, Jojo, are you guys early? How long have you been here?" Arbor blinked. "He came a day or two earlier than you." She didn't want to hurt them, so she arrived at Shaoli village early in the morning of the second day of drifting. "Jojo, where are Prince Mo and Prince Jin?" "They went to a further place to explore." The little fellow pursed her lips. "I felt bored, so I came back first." Giant rocks were everywhere, and they were either black or crimson. How could Xiao Mu have the patience to scout the path? In any case, there was Shichen accompanying the two of them to tinker with the path, so she did not need Sir Qiao Qiao's assistance from the side. "Jojo." Qi Xianxian held her little hand and said with a smile, "When we were soaking in the river, I thought I would never see you again." "How could that be?" Arbor involuntarily cast her a glance. "You're full of nonsense." "Aya, don't tell me, when we were soaking in the boundless water, I also felt guilty," Liang Qingqing said with a chuckle. Before she could finish speaking, they heard a loud roar in the distance. Everyone's faces froze when they heard the sound, and they stood up in unison. They saw smoke and dust billowing over from the distance. Chapter 3071. Xiao Mu hastily stood taller, and she saw the two clumsy giant bears charging towards the campsite while leaving a deep pit in their wake, one higher than the other, lower than the other. Many people were startled by this boorish roar and hastily ran out of their tents. They couldn't help but be shocked when they saw it. One of the bears with brown fur flattened a tent with a stomp. It stomped over the dilapidated tent and swung its fan-sized paw forcefully, immediately sending the slowest runner flying. Pfft! That runner spat out a mouthful of blood and crashed into a large tree nearby. He directly rolled to the ground and immediately lost consciousness. Arbor's eyes widened slightly. Where did these two bears come from? Judging from their combat strength, they're at least level 10 spirit beasts. Sidu creased his brows. A level 10 spirit beast's combat strength couldn't be mentioned in the same breath as a level 10 great spiritual master. To put it bluntly, 2 level 10 great spiritual masters might not even be able to kill a level 10 spirit beast. This kind of disparity was mainly due to the fact that spirit beasts were more powerful. Prepare for battle. Everyone gathered forward one after another, each of them summoning their own weapons from their own consciousness, ready for battle. Go. Lady Jojo swung her small arms and calmly stood on a rock. She gazed at her little companions, and after she gave the order, they all executed their movement techniques and flew over. The Seekong Planet battle team was very experienced in group battles. After charging over, they each took up their respective positions. Duanmu Qing used the power of his wooden vines to wrap around one of the giant bear's thick legs. Little Fatty, Lu Yu, and the others then followed suit and freely sent their spiritual energy towards the giant bear. Qi Xianxian stayed behind to launch a sneak attack. As she fought, she turned her head and saw the little stoic expressionlessly standing far away from them, calmly observing the situation. She couldn't resist covering her face and laughing involuntarily. The stoic face, this swindler, when he ordered, "Go," just now, it turned out that he wanted them to go since the Seekong Planet battle team went up to take on one of the bears, Sid Yi, and the others went to attack the other one. Fire-smelting city and ice-sealed city added up to more than 10 people. Dealing with a black bear was a simple matter. Yu Xiu rushed over with a stream of fire. Everyone rushed forward in a flurry, and all kinds of spiritual energy smashed towards the unlucky bear's body. The big bear arched its body and couldn't help but bear the attacks of the crowd. There was a slight pained expression on its face. "Stuff." The little stoic's icy voice abruptly rang out. As a result, it was as if someone had pressed the pause button. Everyone stopped what they were doing and turned to look in her direction with a blank expression. The little fellow had short arms and legs, so everyone had to look down to see her. The little stoic's face was expressionless as she pattered towards them with small steps. Chen Baojia and the others, who had been chased by the two bears, were now sitting on the ground, panting heavily. Seeing Sid Yi and the others stop, Chen Baojia couldn't help but cry out unwillingly, "Why did you stop? Kill them quickly. Who knows how many people in our team have been harmed by these two damned bears?" However, no one paid attention to her. Everyone dispersed to the sides in an orderly manner, opening up a path that could allow the short legs to pass through. Sir Jojo stood in front of that black bear. Chapter 3072. Standing in front of this large and burly bear, this tiny person was simply like a small bean sprout fluttering in the wind. She was so frail that she was pitiful. The little fellow raised her small hand and expressionlessly patted the bear's thick thigh. Everyone couldn't help but look at her with a dark expression. They couldn't understand this child's actions. Previously, she was the one who told them to attack, and now, she was also the one who told them to stop. Jojo's thoughts seemed to be a bit hard to guess. The blue spirit snake emperor that was coiled around the little fellow's hand and playing dead all day suddenly moved. It slightly raised its small snake head and bared its fangs at the large bear in front of it. This blue spirit snake emperor was a peak-level spirit beast. Any beast below a divine beast could only crawl in front of it. When the bear saw such a thin and frail little snake, its hair stood on end in fright. It stealthily retreated a step, and its body even arched. The little stoic expressionlessly walked forward a few more steps. Duanmu Qing was about to grab her small hand and indicate for her not to come too close. After all, this little fellow was currently a weakling. The little stoic waved her hand at him and pattered to the large bear's feet. She raised her small head and hooked her small hand at it. "Let me take a look at its injuries." That large bear had developed intelligence and could naturally understand her words. When it heard her, it couldn't help but be dumbfounded, and its eyes misted over. It obediently prostrated its enormous body. Everyone focused their eyes and finally saw that this large bear was hugging a small bear cub. This small bear cub looked like it was on its last breath. It was very small, not even as big as a toddler. Arbor carried it over and gently laid it flat on the ground. Qi Xianxian and the others widened their eyes in shock and then looked down at their hands. Just now, they actually shamelessly attacked a female bear that was hugging a cub. Qi Xianxian and the others all glanced at the little stoic resentfully. The stoic said expressionlessly, "I also didn't notice at the beginning. The enemy attacked our camp. Don't tell me we should be polite to them?" The little stoic said dryly, "We deserve to be beaten up." Everyone was speechless. "They destroyed a few of our tents. Now that we've beaten them up, we're even." Everyone was speechless. Why did he suddenly feel that what the little stoic said made a lot of sense? Although the little stoic was talking to them, her movements weren't weak at all. This little bear had more than a dozen very serious spiritual injuries on its body. Both of its legs were broken, and its nose was twitching. It looked somewhat pitiful. After the little stoic finished bandaging it, she fed it a healing medicine and a small bottle of nutrient solution before turning to look at Chen Baojia and the others who were sitting paralyzed on the side. "You guys did it?" Chen Baojia was obviously choked by this question. Looking at the little stoic's pitch-black icy eyes, a trace of anger involuntarily surfaced in his heart. "So what if we did it? Who doesn't capture spirit beasts like this?" Chen Baojia stiffened her neck and scoffed. "You speak as if those spirit beasts around you followed you here of their own accord and you've never captured them before." The little stoic blinked and nodded apathetically at her. She carried the small bear cub to the large bear's feet and patted its thick thigh. Only then did she turn around and say to Qi Xianxian and the others, "Let's go." "Hey, where are you guys going?" Chapter 3073. Zhongli Jiwei, who was sitting paralyzed next to Chen Baojia, couldn't help but become anxious when she saw that the little stoic was about to leave with Duan Muqing, Hidden Flower, and the others. What kind of joke was this? Their current combat strength simply wasn't enough to continue fighting with the two large bears. If the little stoic led them all away, then how were they going to fight with the bears later? Most of them were below level 10 spiritual cultivators. For example, the person running at the very back just now was merely a level 7 spiritual cultivator. He was sent flying by a bear with a single slap, and he still hadn't woken up from his coma. Arbor glanced at them coldly and couldn't be bothered to continue speaking to them. He turned around and pattered away. How could Qi Xianxian and the others continue to stay here after Arbor left? They hastily left with Sir Jojo. "Hey, wait, you guys." The Flying Sword Academy students couldn't help but become anxious. Judging from the little stoic's appearance, she really didn't seem to be joking. If they left like this and left them here, what good would come out of it if they were attacked by the bears a few times? You want to capture someone else's child, so their parents will hunt you down. Isn't this a very normal thing? Arbor glanced back at them aloofly and said coldly, "It's inconvenient for us to intervene in personal grudges. You guys can do as you please. Remember not to hit our tent. If you flatten my tent, don't blame me for being merciless." Arbor coldly threw down this sentence and left. Everyone's mouths involuntarily twitched when they heard this, and they all looked at the little stoic who turned around to leave. What did this child say? This logical thinking, was truly unconventional and very different from the rest. But for some reason, Sidi and the others actually felt that what their little junior sister said was very reasonable. They really couldn't find a single mistake. Was it because they were led astray by the little stoic's bizarre thinking? Chen Baojia, Zhongli Jiwei, and the others were even more flabbergasted and fumed with anger. The little stoic meant that they couldn't even compare to a lousy tent. How could she say that? Therefore, she felt that speaking with this stoic face really required a very strong psychological endurance. Otherwise, she would most likely be angered to death. Arbor went into the tent to make pills. He threw out a soundproof talisman to block out the sounds outside. Who cared what was going on outside? What did it have to do with her? Chen Baojia, Zhongli Jiwei, and the others were really unlucky. The two big bears consciously didn't touch any of the tents, but they kept chasing after Chen Baojia and Zhongli Jiwei. Both sides fought fiercely until the Holy Sun led a group of people back for lunch. Only then did they stop and call it a day. The two big bears were both intelligent. When they saw so many people returning to the camp, how could they continue to stay here? He hurriedly roared, and the two big bears, one male and one female, carried their babies and ran away. At this time, Chen Baojia, Zhongli Jiwei, and the others had already been beaten black and blue by Dexiong. Even their parents couldn't recognize them. One of Chen Baojia's arms was even broken, and half of it was hanging in front of her chest. She groaned and complained incessantly. Zhongli Jiwei was even more unlucky. Both of her eyes were bruised, half of her face was swollen, and her eyes were bloodshot. She looked very unlucky. Chapter 3074. Damn it. If that damn blind bear's slap had been a little more ruthless, her head would have been smacked off. There was simply no justice in this world. Why did they have to be so miserable and miserable? Chen Baojia and Zhongli Jiwei sat paralyzed on the ground, gasping for breath. When they saw Holy Sun Mi Yen, they couldn't help but start crying. Sir Holy Sun, you have to uphold justice for us. How can there be such a narrow-minded, vicious, and treacherous person in our team? We can't continue traveling together with this kind of person. If this continues, we'll all be killed by her sooner or later. Zhongli Jiwei shrieked. She must be chased out of the team. Right, chased out of the team. Immediately chased out of the team. The people who were also ravaged to the point that their parents couldn't recognize them also clamored along with Zhongli Jiwei and Chen Baojia, agreeing with their views. Originally, they didn't have much enmity toward the little stoic. But after coming into contact with her today, they felt like their hearts and lungs were about to explode from anger. This person could actually look on helplessly as the blind bear tortured them like this. She clearly had the strength to save them, but she didn't do anything. Not only did she not do anything, but she even instigated her companions not to do anything. What kind of godly thinking was this? Could it be that your conscience doesn't hurt at all by doing this? What happened? Holy Sun Mi Yen had just returned, so he naturally didn't know what was going on. Seeing the miserable state of Zhongli Jiwei and Chen Baojia's group, some compassion and sympathy arose in his heart. God loves the world. The Holy Sun stretched out his hands, revealing a compassionate expression of a Holy Father. What exactly happened? Since we're a team now, let's head to the Sun Moon Temple together for practical training. Then if there's something within my power, I'll do my best to help everyone. Sir Holy Sun. Chen Baojia immediately became spirited when she heard this. She wailed dryly as she scrambled to the front of the Holy Sun, hugged his leg and continued to bawl. Look at us. Isn't it miserable? Isn't it pitiful? It's all because of that stoic face. It's all because of her. Because of her. Arbor opened the curtain and walked out of the tent, just in time to hear Chen Baojia's demonic voice. Who did she hurt? She beat them up? Did she summon the bear? How did she suddenly become the culprit? She must be kicked out of our team immediately. Kicked out of the team? Sir Jojo couldn't help but snort in disdain. This group of people was really whimsical. She calmly walked over and stood in front of Holy Sun Mi Yen. She said coldly, "Who wants to kick me out of the team?" Me. Zhongli Jiwei screamed. She pointed at the wound on her face and angrily roared, "Look at what I've become. You woman, you, hey, why are you being so loud? Who's deaf? Can't you speak properly?" Qi Xianxian interrupted her in annoyance. "Lord Holy Sun." Zhongli Jiwei shouted angrily, "I feel ashamed to have such a teammate." "Who's your teammate?" Arbor tilted his head and glanced at her with disdain. "Tell them who we are." Qi Xianxian, Lu Yu, and the others looked at each other. They pulled out a dagger at the same time with 5 large words engraved on the hilt. Seekong Planet Battle Team was vivid in their minds. Everyone's lips involuntarily twitched. Chapter 3075. Fuck, it turned out that they already had a battle team prepared for them. Arbor also leisurely pulled out a similar dagger from his waist and flashed it in front of everyone. "Is there something wrong with your head? Who's in the same battle team as you?" "Haha, we're just going the same way. Don't think too much." Little Fatty put away the dagger with a chuckle. Zhongli Jiwei's face flushed red. Little Fatty's words made it seem like she, Zhongli Jiwei, was flattering herself and insisted on being in the same team as them. Seekong Planet Battle Team looked down on people like them. Was that what he meant? Liang Qingqing couldn't help but find it funny. Little junior sister was really so interesting wherever she went. She actually made a small battle team of her own. Sir Jojo expressionlessly looked at Zhongli Jiwei, whose face was as red as pig liver sauce. Do you have any other questions? Zhongli Jiwei choked on her breath and couldn't speak for a long time. Beside her, Chen Baojia couldn't help but say angrily, "Since we're all in the same team now, it's wrong for you to ignore the life and death of your teammates. You guys went to kill other people's children and ended up being hunted down by their adults? What does this have to do with me?" Sir Jojo had a flabbergasted expression. She really couldn't figure it out. Could it be that these people weren't prepared to be killed by other people's parents before they killed other people's children? What were these people thinking? They were allowed to kill others, but others couldn't find trouble with them? It didn't make sense at all. Sir Jojo looked at them as if they were weirdos and shook his head. It's more appropriate to treat people with brain disease as soon as possible. The later the stage, the harder it is to treat. The main treatment method can be acupuncture or medication. It requires 1 to 5 courses of treatment and lasts for half a year. Ce really couldn't hold it in. As he burst out laughing, he nodded apologetically at everyone and coughed lightly. "My apologies." He freaking couldn't hold it in. Sir Jojo was seriously a bit too funny. Everyone felt like they were talking to a chicken talking to a duck. Weren't they talking about how they shouldn't leave their teammates in the lurch? Why is this stoic face pulling a stunt like he's actually talking about a brain disease? He's even making it sound so serious, as if this group of people all have an incurable disease. Chen Baojia was so angry that her face turned red. She raised her nose slightly and panted heavily. "You..." She racked her brains but couldn't find a word to describe this stoic face with a vile attitude. Arbor looked at her indifferently. "Your left hand is fractured, and there are internal injuries in your chest and abdomen. If you don't treat them properly, I'm afraid it will affect the use of that arm in the future. I noticed that your complexion is abnormally flushed. It should be due to the accumulation of lung qi and extreme liver fire." She still had to pay attention to adjusting her state of mind to avoid excessive anger that would cause her heart to be out of tune. If it was serious, it could even affect her menstrual cycle. If your period doesn't come properly, it will affect your fertility in the future, and it will also affect your life as a couple. It's very inappropriate. Cough, cough, cough. This time, even the saint could not help but have a strange expression on his face as his cheeks twitched slightly. If one looked closely, they could see that the veins on the saint's forehead were throbbing slightly. He silently glanced at the little stoic and saw that her expression was very serious. She didn't look like she was teasing him at all. It indeed looked like she was dispelling a patient's doubts out of a doctor's heart. "You can wait for me today. 0-point explosion is even better. I'm still in the middle of preparing the manuscript. It's too rushed. I have to prepare for the new year and I'm still being dragged by others to chat about daily life. How miserable." Chapter 3076. However, Chen Baojia was so angry that her fingers trembled. She kept pointing at Arbor and saying "hu hu" for a long time before finally collapsing to the ground with a thump. She was so angry that her nose was bleeding. The little stoic shook her head. "Your internal heat is too strong. You have to pay attention to adjusting your emotions. The ancients said that one should not show one's emotions on their faces. This is not completely an exaggeration. It does have some health purposes. When dealing with matters, one must guard against arrogance and impatience. One must guard against anger and depression. Otherwise, it will be extremely bad for one's body." The little stoic said indifferently, "You have to be indifferent in everything you do. Like me, I'm indifferent normally and indifferent when I'm angry. If I'm indifferent in everything I do, I will definitely live a long, long life." Ha ha. Suddenly, Qi Xianxian squatted to the side and slapped her thigh in wild laughter. Her laughter was like a freaking floodgate being opened, and the laughter around her rose and fell in picturesque disorder. Fuck, wasn't this stoic face too funny? She even freaking imitated her indifference, indifferent facial paralysis, indifferent expressionless, and indifferent to the point that birds could fly. It just so happened that Mo Lien, Duan Yu, and Hechen returned. When they saw everyone laughing like idiots, they couldn't help but be baffled. Meanwhile, the tiny and expressionless Sir Jojo who was standing there was also perplexed. It was simply baffling. She was clearly explaining some medical principles to them and reminding that Miss Chen not to always be angry. Anger was especially bad for women. Why the heck were they all laughing so exaggeratedly? What was so funny about this? Sir Jojo expressed that he completely didn't understand other people's logical thinking. Mo Lien saw his little wifey standing there and looking at everyone expressionlessly. She was clearly out of tune with the surrounding people who were laughing like idiots. He couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He quickly walked over and pulled the little fellow to the side. "What's wrong?" He knew that she would have a questioning expression even if he asked. The little fellow clearly didn't understand what others were laughing at. The way of medicine isn't a joke. Laughing indiscriminately, you don't know how to laugh blindly. The little fellow flicked her sleeves angrily and turned to leave with a huff. Duan Yu couldn't help but be speechless. After sweeping his gaze around, he picked up the little fatty and asked, "What happened?" Little fatty was already out of breath from laughing. Hearing this, he hurriedly held back his laughter and repeated what had just happened word by word. In the end, he even said, "Jojo always said that Miss Chen's internal heat is strong and her liver is burning. Who would have known that Miss Chen was angered to this extent by her? She even taught others to be indifferent." Qi Xianxian smiled as she squatted on the ground. "Learn from her." "Ha, I can't take it anymore. Let me laugh for a while more." Ma Yingchen smiled and said, "I love the way my little Jojo infuriates people to death. I'm going to check on my Qiao. She's so cute." Mo Lien rolled her eyes at him but did not chase after him. Instead, she walked up to the Holy Sun, whose eyebrows were twitching, and said, "I think it's better if we leave early tomorrow morning." Sir Holy Sun was still in a daze from the little stoic's indifference and had yet to recover his wits. When he heard this, he only nodded indifferently without any ripples in his emotions. "From the looks of it, the weather won't be too good tomorrow." Mo Lien said, "The road ahead is filled with low-lying valleys. The Rocky Mountains on both sides are extremely steep, and there's a lot of soil piled up on top." Chapter 3077. If the rain is heavy, it might cause a landslide. It would be bad if the road is blocked. Moreover, this is still a no-fly zone. It won't do us any good if we leave too late. Hearing this, Holy Sun Mi Yen nodded seriously. The Crown Prince's words are very reasonable. We will go to do Chunjiang this afternoon and see if there are any others who were left behind. After a night's rest, we will set off early in the morning tomorrow. Seeing that he had listened, Mo Lien nodded and turned to walk back to his tent. With Holy Sun Mi Yen leading the search and rescue operation in the afternoon, there shouldn't be much of a problem. After Mo Lien entered the tent, he saw Lord Jojo leaning against a soft tiger skin couch. She was holding a jar of dried fruit and chewing it with her cheeks puffed up. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal was sitting leisurely on a short table, holding a cup of tea in his hand. Seeing him enter, he blinked and smiled. "Ah, you've talked to Mayan?" Mo Lien nodded. "We'll leave early in the morning tomorrow." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal glanced at the little girl suggestively. Mo Lien looked over and saw that the little girl was silent and continued chewing on the dried fruit. His little girl was angry and wanted to eat something good to cool down when she was angry. Prince Mo found it funny, but he didn't dare to laugh out loud. He only coughed lightly and said, "Jojo, when your husband followed them to explore nearby, I saw a flower growing on a rock. I thought it looked very pretty, so I plucked it and gave it to you." Lord Jojo turned his little head to look at him. "Where's the flower?" Ma Shurchen put down her teacup and rolled her eyes. "Forget it. There's a giant python coiled behind that flower. I've waited for 200 years for this flower in the stone to bloom, but you snatched it away." Prince Mo took out a small flower glowing with white light from his inner world and handed it to Arbor. "It's pretty, my wife." Lord Jojo quickly nodded and carefully took the flower in the stone from his hands. His gloomy anger was swept away and he beamed. "Bulbul, plant it for master." This flower in the stone was really good stuff. She wondered if she could get Chio to breed it. They would be of great use if they were reproduced. When the time came, he could grind one stalk into powder and concoct a multi-purpose health pill. As long as the person didn't die on the spot, Even if they were paralyzed for more than 10 years after taking it, they would slowly recover. Jojo finally smiled. Just now, Peach Blossom said that the flower in the stone was guarded by a guardian beast. Did you fight with it? You didn't? Prince Mo looked at his wife innocently. How could my husband do such a thing? My husband stole its flower, so naturally he wouldn't harm its life. Am I right, Jojo? The little fellow nodded his head in a serious manner, feeling that his husband was very reliable. Duan Yu, who had just entered through the curtain, happened to hear Mo Lian's self-praising words. He couldn't resist rolling his eyes at the sky as he said, he didn't hit the other party. He merely revealed his black fire, which scared that snake into cowering and immediately slipping away. The little stoic gazed at them expressionlessly. Forget it, don't blame anyone. Based on her understanding of them, it was most likely that the unlucky snake wasn't scared away by Mo Lian. It was definitely scared away by the three of them working together. Prince Mo couldn't resist bursting into laughter. What nonsense are you babbling about? We're all civilized people, so we naturally wouldn't do that kind of outrageous thing. Duan Yu rolled his eyes. Chapter 3078. This time, even the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal could not bear to continue listening to this fellow's boasting. He asked with a dark expression, "Did you tell them?" Mo Lian replied with an "oh," before flipping open the curtain and walking outside. I'll go call them all over. Before long, Sir Jojo's tent was filled with people. Qi Xianxian and Liang Qingqing squeezed together with Sir Jojo. Meanwhile, Sid Yi and the others sat as much as they could and could only stand for the time being if they could not. We will set off early in the morning tomorrow. The path at the canyon is not easy to walk on. With this weather, it will probably start raining in the afternoon. Mo Lian said, the path ahead is very narrow, and the Rocky Mountains on both sides form a crevice with that path. I suspect that someone will set up an ambush here. Situ Yi and the others were involuntarily taken aback. What? Who would be so bold as to ambush us there? Duan Muqing said, the Crown Prince means that the Heavenly Fate will set up an ambush on that path to outflank us. Fuck, can't the Heavenly Fate just give it a rest? What is the Heavenly Fate trying to do? It's enough to make a move in Du Chunjiang. He still won't let us off now? Those zombie crocodiles in Du Chunjiang are only the appetizer. The main show is yet to come. Duan Yu said aloofly, the most important thing is that everyone needs to mentally prepare themselves and nip the problem in the bud. Tomorrow's path will probably be more difficult. Moreover, this place is still in no-fly mode, so we must be more careful, Prince Mo added. Sir Jojo sat there expressionlessly and took out a dried fruit to continue chewing without saying a word. Everyone turned to look and almost burst out laughing. This child had a "don't talk to me" expression on her stoic face. If it weren't for her mouth continuously chewing, she would truly look like a small jade sculpture. She sat on the soft couch and calmly looked at them like this. Ci immediately self-reflected and quickly apologized to the little girl. Jojo, it was Senior Brother's fault just now. Senior Brother shouldn't have laughed so impudently. Forgive Senior Brother, don't ignore Senior Brother. Yes, Senior Brother should keep it in his heart. Even if he choked to death, he couldn't laugh out loud. The corners of Liang Qingqing's mouth twitched, and she almost couldn't hold it in. Fuck, Senior Brother Situ is definitely trying to be funny with a straight face. Next time, can you please remind me before you tell me a joke? I can't hold it in. Senior Brother should support your diagnosis. I support you unconditionally, Situ Yi said with a straight face. Those people who are laughing are definitely uncultured. You don't know anything about medicine. What's so funny about such a serious matter? Yes, I was the one who diagnosed the Crown Princess. What are you guys laughing about? Hidden Flower hurriedly nodded. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone glared at him. You brat, you laughed the loudest just now. Lord Jojo glanced at them and snorted. Suddenly, he waved his hand and took out a box from his inner world. Give out the pills. Get ready to leave tomorrow. All right. Everyone covered their mouths and laughed, nodding repeatedly. By the way, Jojo, when will you be able to recover? Ooh. Before Wei Nanfeng could finish his giggling sentence, lightning rushed up and covered his mouth and dragged him out of the tent. She simply touched his sore spot. Did she want to be scolded by Lord Jojo? Hey, lightning, why the hell are you covering my mouth? Chapter 3079. Mr. Jojo waved his hand angrily. I'm going to Paradise Planet to take a nap. Don't disturb me if there's nothing important. Arbor didn't come out of Paradise Planet until sunset. She had a good sleep. When she woke up, she drew a lot of talismans to replenish the speed talismans and 5 spirit talismans that she had used to avoid the Omega Kotoku. Lady Qiao Qiao stretched her body and happily walked out of the tent with a few colorful divine fish in her hands. She called out, "Husband." Mo Lien didn't respond. The little girl scratched her head with the colorful divine fish in her hand. Qi Xianxian ran out of the tent and smiled at her. "Ah, you're awake, my Qiao. Prince Mo and Prince Chen have been invited to the riverside by the saint." Arbor nodded. "Then I'll grill the fish." Qi Xuanxuan's mouth twitched. She quickly said, No, the fatty is here. You don't have to do such a small thing. Fatty, little fatty." The little fatty had just come back from relieving himself. He tidied his clothes and said, "What are you talking about? I'm coming." "Fatty, we're eating fish tonight. Fix it. Leave it to me." When the little fatty saw Qi Xianxian winking at him, he immediately understood. He chuckled and took the colorful divine fish from Lady Qiao Qiao's hands. "Hey, these fish are really nimble." Mr. Jojo looked at them suspiciously. "Do you dislike my cooking?" No. The little fatty and Qi Xianxian immediately waved their hands against their will and said with a smile, "We feel sorry for you. Don't work too hard." Mr. Jojo glanced at them and snorted. He turned and walked towards the riverside. "I'm going to check on my lotus." Qi Xianxian nodded and couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. "Xianxian, your expression just now was a little too exaggerated. Be careful not to expose yourself in front of Jojo. I think my expression is normal." "Then why did she suspect you earlier?" Qi Xianxian whispered to him, "You're right, Jojo is too smart. If we don't let her cook in the future, we'll have to use more indirect methods. We can't be too direct, lest she gets suspicious." The fat boy nodded his head vigorously. "We can't let her feel that you dislike her cooking." Qi Xianxian glanced at him from the corner of her eyes and pouted. "You make it sound like you don't mind." Arbor could see many people gathered at the bank of the vast Dokun River from afar. The voice of the Holy Sun's command entered her ears over and over again. Bring it up. Put it down properly." Cough, cough, cough. A few students from the Hong Academy were carried up and placed on the ground. Turn it over, and spit out the water." The Holy Sun stood at the side and gestured as he spoke. Naturally, someone stepped forward and turned those people over. He patted their backs and asked them to spit out the water that was choking on their chests. Cough, cough, cough. A student from the Hong Academy instinctively wiped the water on his face and coughed a few times. "Little brother, are you all right?" Dou Fengmian helped that person up and reached out to check his pulse. "Your body is fine, just a little weak. You'll be fine after resting for a day or two." Thank you, little brother." The student from the Hong Academy nodded gratefully at Dou Fengmian and was helped to sit at the side. Chapter 3080. Sir Holy Sun, over there are still people over there. Thank God, everyone should be fine, right? Help the rescued people to the side to sit down first. Arbor looked at Holy Sun Mi Yen, who was standing on the stone block with a compassionate priest-like expression, and she couldn't resist rolling her eyes at the sky. This hypocrite, he didn't look like a good person at all. When the Holy Sun turned around, he saw the little stoic looking at him expressionlessly with an icy face. He couldn't help but be dumbfounded before hastily saying, "Stoic face, come here, come here." Who was the stoic face? Arbor's small face was wooden, looking like she couldn't be bothered to pay attention to that person. Holy Sun Mi Yen hurriedly beckoned her over. "Come here, there are many patients here that the Dou family brothers didn't have time to see. Come over and take a look at them." The little stoic placed her small paws behind her back and expressionlessly walked over. "Where's my husband?" "Oh, I asked His Highness the Crown Prince and His Highness Prince Chin to go somewhere further away to look for him. You sure know how to assign people." The little stoic rolled her eyes, feeling increasingly dissatisfied with this priest-like holy son. Ever since she got here, she saw this guy standing on the stone block and ordering people to do this and that. Now, he was actually assigning JoJo's Lien and Duan Yu to do this? He was really good at using them. Holy Son Mi Yen pursed his lips and suddenly said, "You need to be paid." The little stoic, "You need to be paid 2 million spirit coins." The little stoic, Alright, hurry up and take a look. Are there any problems with these people's bodies?" Do Fengmian and Do Fenghua both turned their heads and nodded at the little girl. "Thank you for your trouble." Arbor half-squatted and took their pulses one after another. She took out a medicine bottle from her sleeve and looked in Holy Son Mi Yan's direction. "Okay." Sir Holy Son immediately twitched his mouth in understanding. "Give them the medicine." As expected of a saint who could deliver the world. The little stoic curled her lips. "Enchem." Xiao Mu nodded her small head before turning around to pour out a pill for each of those people. Holy Son Mi Yen wanted to cry but had no tears. He secretly rolled his eyes at the back of the little guy. "Let's go our separate ways. I've paid the money, and we're done." Arbor stood up expressionlessly, turned around, and walked towards the river. Everyone looked at her back with some bitterness. The little stoic wanted to draw a clear line between herself and all of them. Holy Son Mi Yen sighed. He knew that his image in front of the stoic face wasn't good from the start. No matter how hard he tried in the future, it would probably be very difficult to change his image if they didn't have a good relationship. They would have to fork out a lot of money. Just thinking about it made her want to cry. Arbor climbed onto a rock by the river and gazed into the distance. A spiritual weapon that looked like a big-headed carp quickly emerged from the bottom of the water and swam quickly toward the riverside along with the flowing water. The speed was so fast that it was like a bolt of lightning flashing across the sky, causing people to hold their breaths. In the blink of an eye, that big-headed carp arrived at the riverside and stopped. Sir Holy Son lamented, "Young Master Mu's spiritual weapon can be said to be extraordinary. It should be infinitely close to a divine weapon. It's really fast." When the cabin door opened, Mu Xingchen jumped out first and hurriedly threw up while supporting himself on a rock. Everyone couldn't help but be speechless. They had never seen their master throw up time after time because of his own spiritual weapon. Chapter 3081. Hinchem, Arbor nodded. "Are you done? Let's go home and eat." "I'm done." Emolien nodded with a smile. "I'll roast colorful divine fish for you guys tonight." Arbor grumbled. "Xian said she didn't want me to work, but I think they all disdained my cooking. Is my roasted fish that bad?" Vexation appeared on the little fellow's face. "How could that be?" Emolien suppressed her laughter and secretly nudged Duan Yu. Duan Yu glanced at him speechlessly and braced himself to say, "JoJo's roasted fish is naturally the best. How about we go back and have JoJo roast 2 for Emolien?" Emolien, "Okay." Sir JoJo nodded vigorously. "I'll also roast 2 for you." "Duan Yu." Emolien couldn't resist turning her face away. "Who told you to cheat your brother? You also fell into the trap yourself." At this time, Mu Xingchen had also finished vomiting and walked forward dizzily. He had just called out, "Sister," when he seemed to have thought of something and hastily said, "Quick, quick, there are still people in the hold. Quickly have people carry them out first." Holy Son Mi Yen had already ordered people to go forward and carry 7 to 8 people out of the spirit tool's stomach. Good, this should be enough." Holy Son Mi Yen nodded at Mu Xingchen and the others with a gratified expression. "Young Master Mu's spirit tool has really helped us greatly this time." Mu Xingchen quickly waved his hand and said to Arbor, Sister, give me an antiemetic first." Holy Son Mi Yen glanced at Mu Xingchen speechlessly and then said, "This spirit tool looks quite spacious, right? How can young Master Mu not adapt? Why is it like this every time?" Mu Xingchen couldn't help but chuckle wryly. He could say that ever since that freak Emolien modified it, Not only did the spirit tool's speed increase by 100-fold, but the space in its stomach also increased by a lot. But the problem was it was too fast. Traveling at such a high speed that it felt as though he was flying, he felt a little dizzy. He reckoned that he would have to get used to it a few more times before he felt better. Arbor gave him a pill to stop his dizziness and looked at him. "Big brother, are you okay?" "Big brother is fine." Mu Xingchen hurriedly waved at her and forced a smile. Fuck, his big brother vomited like an idiot after being seen by his little sister a few times. Sob. His image was completely ruined in front of his younger sister. Mu Xingchen wept silently for a while before he suddenly thought of something. He hurriedly turned to Dou Fengmian and said, "Oh right, Ro Xian's injuries are quite serious. Would young Master Dou please take a look at her?" Dou Fengmian and Dou Fenghua looked at each other and nodded politely at Mu Xingchen. At this time, two people carried Mu Roxuan over. She was lying on the cold ground with her eyes closed. Her hair was still dripping with river water. Ro Xian. Mu Xingchen looked rather anxious. Dou Fengmian carefully examined Mu Roxuan's injuries and looked at Mu Xingchen rather awkwardly. Miss Mu's injuries are below her abdomen. This wound, it really wasn't convenient for him to examine it. Although Dou Fengmian didn't say this out loud, Mu Xingchen also understood his meaning. Dou Fengmian turned to look at the little stoic again. Seeing that she was expressionlessly looking elsewhere without any intention of volunteering, he didn't open his mouth to provoke her anymore. Mu Xingchen also knew that this matter was somewhat difficult for the Dou family's young master, so he also secretly looked back at Arbor, hesitating whether he should open his mouth. Chapter 3082. After all, Jojo and Mu Roxuan's relationship really wasn't that good. If he spoke up, wouldn't it infuriate Jojo? "Stoic, what are you still standing there for? Hurry up and save her." Holy Sun Mi Yen spoke first and waved his hand at the little stoic. "I'll give you the consultation fee later." "How can you be so kind-hearted?" Arbor glanced at the Holy Sun in confusion. "Didn't you previously make us sign a contract saying that once we enter the mystic realm, our lives and deaths have nothing to do with your temple? We haven't entered the mystic realm yet, right?" Holy Sun Mi Yen said. "How would it look if they let people die on the way before even entering the mystic realm? The temple would also lose a lot of face." Upon seeing this, Arbor nodded. "Since it's your request, then fine." Arbor pattered to Mu Roxuan's side with small steps. She crouched down and reached out to hold a knife, about to cut off the obstructing fabric on Mu Roxuan's stomach. Unexpectedly, Mu Roxuan suddenly woke up, and her hazy eyes abruptly widened. She stared fixedly at the dagger in Arbor's hand and shouted in a trembling voice, What are you doing?" Arbor turned the small knife in her hand and looked at her coldly while pinching it between her fingers. "As you can see, I'm treating your injury." "No, I don't want you to treat me." Mu Roxuan's pupils contracted, and she repeatedly shook her head. When she moved slightly, the wound connected to her brain and nerves. It was so painful that she broke out in layers of cold sweat, and her entire body trembled uncontrollably as if she was soaked in cold water. Arbor raised a brow at her noncommittally and then put away the small knife in her hand. She wasn't even in the mood to explain and directly waved her hand at the Holy Sun, saying, "She's not willing. You should find someone else." It wasn't like she was so idle that she had to treat her illness. Since she wasn't willing, she wouldn't rush over to join in the fun. In any case, there were many capable people in the world. Doctors and pharmacists were readily available on the streets, so she didn't have to be the one to treat this injury. Holy Sun Mi Yen stared blankly for a moment before hurriedly persuading Mu Roxuan, "Miss Mu, your injuries are quite serious. Furthermore, it's in the lower abdomen. It's not convenient for young Master Dou and the others to look at it. It's better to let Miss Qiao take a look at it." Holy Sun Mi Yen thought that Mu Roxuan was doubting Arbor's medical skills and hurriedly comforted her, "Don't worry. From what I've seen, Miss Qiao's medical skills are very good. Roxuan, don't be willful." Mu Xingchen hurriedly said to Mu Roxuan, "Let Jojo take a look at your wound. Your injury can't be delayed any longer." However, Mu Roxuan shook her head firmly. "Don't let her see it. Big brother, I don't want her to see it." Find someone else, big brother, big brother. The more Mu Rochuan screamed, the more agitated she became. Her entire body couldn't help but tremble slightly. In the end, they were sisters who grew up together, so they naturally had some true feelings for each other. Mu Xingshan couldn't bear to see his sister like this, so he nodded repeatedly and said, Okay, big brother understands. Big brother will immediately go find someone else. However, Mo Lian and Duan Yu were a bit angered. When they saw Mu Rochuan's suicidal look, their eyes revealed traces of fury. You don't know what's good for you. Jojo, let's go. Lord Holy Sun. Mo Lian coldly called out. Holy Sun Mi Yen shuddered, feeling like he had done something bad with good intentions. Chapter 3083. He wouldn't be dissed by the couple again, right? Even though he felt that being scolded by the couple was nothing out of the ordinary, he wasn't a cheap person who was in a hurry to be scolded by others. Remember to pay the remuneration and consultation fee today. Mo Lian said coldly, Jojo examined the Mu family's miss just now, so he must pay the consultation fee. I'll pay right away. I'll pay right away when we return to the camp. Holy Sun Mi Yen twitched his mouth and nodded repeatedly. He thought to himself that this crown prince truly doted on his wife too much. Miss Mu Rochuan merely dissed the little stoic a few times and he immediately felt heartache for her. Besides, this wasn't considered dissing since Miss Mu was already like that. Fine, he clearly didn't trust the little stoic. When Holy Sun Mi Yen looked back, he saw that Mo Lian and Duan Yu had already left with the little stoic. Mu Xingshan raised his head to look in the direction where the three of them had left, then lowered his head to look at the half-dead Mu Roxian on the ground. He sighed and said, Roxian, you really don't understand Xiao Xiao. Since Jojo agreed to treat you, she will definitely do her best. You won't be able to find a second pill alchemist with better medical skills than her. Dou Fengmian nodded in agreement and glanced at Mu Rochuan. Miss Mu, if I use medicine, your injuries might take 5 to 6 days to recover, but if Miss Qiao uses medicine, I estimate that your injuries will be 70% to 80% better in half a day. Mu Xingshan was taken aback. He didn't expect this young sir of the Dou family to have such a high evaluation of the little stoic's medical skills. He couldn't help but feel some regret in his heart. If he had known earlier, he would have knocked Rochuan unconscious earlier and let Jojo continue treating her. Now, he could only watch helplessly as Rochuan's injuries were serious and her expression pained, but he couldn't help much. Ro Xian, take this healing pill first. Mu Xingshan would normally carry some healing medicine distributed by his clan, but this medicine's effects weren't too good. But right now, he could only treat this as a last resort. He stuffed a pill into Mu Rochuan's mouth and turned to Dou Fengmian with a wry smile. Eldest young Master Dou, I'll have to trouble you. In a while, I'll carry Ro Xian back to the cabin. Please treat Ro Xian. Dou Fengmian looked hesitant. Doctors are benevolent. There is no difference between men and women in medicine. Please save me, young Master Dou. Dou Fengmian could only sigh. Originally, he thought that since the little stoic was here and she was a girl, it would be more convenient. He could treat Mu Rochuan in less than 2 days. Who knew that this Miss Mu's personality would be so stubborn, refusing to let the little stoic treat her no matter what? He had no choice but to agree. He couldn't just stand by and watch as Miss Mu's injuries worsened. Everyone couldn't help but look at each other in dismay before looking at the deathly pale Mu Rochuan with puzzlement. This girl is quite pretentious. The Holy Sun then ordered people to carry Mu Rochuan into the fish cabin. However, after going back and forth, Mu Rochuan's face turned even paler, and even her breathing became weaker. Dou Fengmian ordered people to lay Mu Rochuan down. He took out his dagger and muttered, "Excuse me," before cutting off a piece of cloth from Mu Rochuan's lower abdomen. Mu Xingshan involuntarily sucked in a cold breath when he saw his sister's wound. The wound was purplish-gray and strip-shaped, as if something sharp had slid across it. Her entire lower abdomen was nearly sliced open, and it looked extremely serious. Chapter 3084. Her wound had already rotted from being soaked in the river for a long time. Dou Fengmian frowned. Ask my second brother to come in and help me. My second brother once acknowledged the Celestial Medicine Valley's Valley Master as his master, so his medical skills are much better than mine. Mu Xingqian quickly nodded. How could he refuse at this time? He hastily crawled out of the carp's belly and asked second young Master Do to also enter the cabin to save Mu Rochuan. On the other side, Duan Yu and Mo Lien, who were walking towards the camp, were trying their best to console Sir Jojo. Jojo, don't be unhappy. We won't stoop to their level. And it's her own loss that she doesn't want you to treat her. Arbor couldn't help but glance at them in amusement. Why would I be angry? I don't even want to bother with her. Moreover, it's human nature for her not to trust me. After all, we've had many conflicts in the past. It'd be weird if she believed me. It saved me a lot of trouble. Isn't it good to collect the consultation fee as usual? Arbor harumphed. He indeed didn't look unhappy at all. It was true in the first place. Mu Rochuan simply didn't rank in her heart. Why would she get angry with a stranger she wasn't familiar with? It wasn't like she had nothing better to do. Duan Yu blinked and said with a smile, That's good. That Mu Rochuan's complexion is pale, and it looks like her injury is quite serious. Xiao Mu nodded. I used my divine conscience to examine her body's condition just now. When she was in the water, she was hit by a large electric eel. The wound on her abdomen is very large. If it weren't for the spirit armor protecting her body, even her dantian would have shattered. Moreover, the power of lightning has already entered her body, so her meridians have also been greatly affected. She pushed away my Jojo because she didn't have good taste. Mo Lien harumphed. She deserves to suffer in the future. Arbor shook his head. Let's not talk about her. Let's return to the camp to eat roasted fish. Little Fatty should be done roasting fish by now. Okay. Sure enough, Little Fatty had already finished roasting a few colorful divine fish. He even removed the bones and sliced off the meat, placing it on a large tray. The fish fillet looked golden and crispy, and the skin was a little crispy. The group of friends sitting around the table all had their eyes fixed on the plate. They were waiting for Arbor and the others to come back so they could start eating. Little Fatty even made pigeon stew and a big pot of holy rice. As soon as Arbor and the other two stepped into the camp, they smelled the fragrance of rice. Arbor's eyes suddenly lit up. He quickly walked forward and sat down beside Qi Xianxian. Have you been waiting for a long time? Not too long. Everyone shook their heads. You came back just in time. The food has just been prepared and it's still warm. Come, let's eat. Duan Yu and Mo Lien also took their seats with a smile. They cast a sidelong glance at the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, who had already picked up his chopsticks and started eating. Why you always wandering around outside? That's right, we don't have someone like you in our team. What should we do if someone discovers us? Can't you guys pretend you didn't see me? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal turned around and rolled his eyes at them. I saw that you guys had such a sumptuous meal and was afraid that it would be a waste if you guys couldn't finish it, so I came out to help you guys finish some. Right, it would be a waste if we couldn't finish it. Everyone eat more. Little Fatty had already finished a bowl of holy rice and silently went to fill a second bowl. This rice was so delicious that it made people unable to stop eating. What should they do? Chapter 3085. Oh, that's right. Have you found those floating on the river? Little Fatty quickly asked after swallowing his rice. We're setting off tomorrow. If we don't make it in time, then we really won't make it in time. Almost all of them have been brought back. Arbor nodded. However, a few people were injured, but it wasn't very serious. He left Mu Rochuan out of the picture and only mentioned the other people's symptoms aloofly. It was mainly because their cultivation wasn't high enough, causing their auras to be weak. In addition, their bodies were weak, so they should have needed 2 days to recuperate. However, the time of departure tomorrow could not be changed. If that was the case, they would be rather unlucky. After all, they could only rest for 1 night, and their bodies might not be able to fully recover. Halfway through their meal, they saw Mu Xingqian rushing over with a burning expression. He said to Qi Xianxian, Miss Qi, Please come with me and help. Arbor coldly curled his lips. What is it, Big Brother Mu? Qi Xianxian quickly stood up and looked at him in confusion. You're in such a hurry. Where do you want me to go to help? Go to the riverside. Rochuan's injuries are quite serious. Mu Xingxian was a bit embarrassed as he said, her lower abdomen was struck by lightning, and the power of thunder and lightning is currently roaming around her body. We need Miss Qi's help to completely remove this power of thunder and lightning from her body. Otherwise, not only will it affect her future cultivation, but her life might also be in danger if it's serious. Since young Master Omega Kotoku wasn't present, Qi Xuanxuan's lightning spirit energy was the purest in the entire team, so Mu Xingxian immediately thought of Qi Xianxian. Duan Yu couldn't resist laughing mockingly. Miss Qi is also Jojo's teammate, and they have a good relationship. Aren't you afraid that Miss Qi will be instructed by Jojo to secretly harm your sister? I think we should just forget about it. Mu Xingxian instantly became even more embarrassed and didn't know how to continue. After all, there really wasn't anything wrong with what Duan Yu said. Just now, it was Rochuan who refused to let Xiao Qiao treat her. Now, she had to go and beg Xiao Qiao's best teammate. This was indeed a little unreasonable. Mu Xingxian glanced uneasily at Arbor. Arbor sighed softly, then turned to Qi Xianxian and said, Miss Mu was attacked by the electric eel. Go and help my big brother. Help Miss Mu suck out the power of lightning from her body. As for the rest, the two young masters of the Dou clan will treat Miss Mu. You don't have to worry about it. Qi Xianxian was baffled. She was not stupid. Seeing that Prince Chen's words were quite sarcastic, and that the eldest brother of the Mu family always had that kind of awkward expression on his face, she couldn't help but ask suspiciously, did something happen just now? It's nothing. Arbor understood Qi Xuanxuan's temper too well. If she knew that Mu Roxian was disdainful of Jojo and refused to let her treat her, she definitely wouldn't help. Perhaps she would even mock Mu Roxian with her sharp tongue. Forget it, for her big brother's sake, she would help where she could. In any case, it was just a small matter, so why make things difficult for her big brother? On the other hand, Arbor had an indifferent attitude. Moreover, it wasn't like other people didn't trust his medical skills before, but so what? If they didn't trust him, then so be it. He was still missing out on something. Chapter 3086. She was the real deal and had inherited her master's top-notch medical skills. There was no need for her to brag about it. She was well aware of it. It didn't matter if others acknowledged it or not. Arbor looked up and nodded slightly at Qi Xianxian. Go ahead. Mu Xingxian heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly said to his little sister, Jojo, Rochuan is in the wrong for this. Big brother will talk to her later. Arbor turned his head away indifferently. No need. It has nothing to do with me. Mu Xingxian's heart couldn't help but sink. There was an indescribable sense of depression in his heart. Could it be that Jojo and Rochuan's relationship had always been like this, Jojo? Mu Xingxian still wanted to say something. Prince Imo couldn't help but look up and rebuke him. All right, you saw that woman's attitude just now. You know very well whether it's Jojo's fault or that woman's fault. We've never been on the same side in the past. There's no need to force us to be together in the future. Imo Lien said in annoyance. Don't keep thinking of being a peacemaker. With her attitude just now, this matter can't be settled. Arbor secretly reached out and tugged at Imo Lien's sleeve. Big brother, bring Xianxian over first. No, you guys should explain it to me clearly. From what you're saying, did Miss Mu and Jojo have some conflict just now? Qi Xianxian turned to look at Mu Xingxian unhappily. Big brother Mu, could it be that Mu Rochuan bullied our Jojo just now? Mu Xingxian quickly shook his head. What ability did Mu Rochuan have to bully Jojo? No one would believe it even if they said it. Then what do they mean by this? Nothing. Xianxian, alright, hurry up and come back to eat after you're done. Arbor quickly used the foodie's favorite food to divert her attention. Qi Xianxian was indeed diverted. She nodded and said, then you guys have to leave some for me. Got it. Hurry up and go. Arbor waved at the two of them. Mu Xingxian opened his mouth but did not say anything. He turned around and left with Qi Xianxian. Everything about young Master Mu is good, but he's indecisive and indecisive. It's a bit of a headache, Duan Yu commented. Regarding this point, Mo Lien was also in full agreement. Personality dictates, personality dictates. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal grinned as he held his rice bowl and picked up another colorful divine fish with his chopsticks. Add more spice next time. It's good for dinner. The little fatty hurriedly nodded and said, Hey, I forgot that I cooked red braised pork. I'll bring it over for you. Oh, we're almost finished. Hurry up and serve the dishes. Is Mu Rochuan seriously injured? When Liang Qingqing and the others were conversing with Qi Xianxian, they had already heard the gossip that Qi Xianxian had told them. By now, they all knew that their Jojo was related to the Mu family by blood. Jojo's true identity was the daughter of the Divine Province's Mu family. Such a delicate little girl actually grew up in a place like the Lower Star Domain. They couldn't help but sigh when they thought about it. Arbor nodded. Her injuries are very serious. When I helped her use her inner vision, I could see that there seemed to be a crack in her dantian, but I don't know the cause. That electric eel also attacked her quite seriously this time. The wound on her lower abdomen won't heal anytime soon. Chapter 3087. Everyone looked at each other and thought to themselves, if her dantian is damaged, then it'll be troublesome. A damaged dantian will affect her future growth. This meant that the Mu family's genius young Miss Growth might stop before she reached the God realm. On the other side, Qi Xianxian followed Mu Xingxian to the Dukhan River and entered the big-headed carp spirit artifact. Ever since this carp was modified by Mo Lien, the space inside became very big. It probably wouldn't be a problem to accommodate 1,000 people. Qi Xianxian walked in and saw that Miss Mu was placed on a reclining chair. Her face was very pale, and her eyes were slightly closed. She looked like she was in great pain. Miss Qi, please extract the lightning spirit energy from Miss Mu's body. Dou Fengmian stood up and moved to the side, inviting Qi Xianxian over. Qi Xianxian nodded and stepped forward. Just as she was about to grab Mu Rochuan's wrist, Mu Rochuan suddenly opened her eyes and glared at Qi Xianxian like a dead fish. Qi Xianxian was startled, and her hand involuntarily shrank back. Mu Xingxian hurriedly went forward and said, Rochuan, stop fooling around. This is Miss Qi. She has 8 levels of spirit lightning and can help you absorb all the lightning energy that's roaming around in your body. Mu Rochuan's entire body seemed to be soaked in sweat. She trembled and shouted with difficulty, No, don't let her come. She's here to harm me. She's Arbor's friend. She's here to harm me. Qi Xuanxuan's eyes widened, and she couldn't help but yell at Mu Xingxian, Great! I didn't know. Did she say that about Jojo just now? If I had known that she was this kind of person, would I have rushed over? Who wants to harm her? Qi Xianxian roared and glared at Mu Xingxian with her bright round eyes. Big brother Mu, I respect you as Jojo's big brother. You said you wanted to help, and I didn't say anything. As long as you said the word, I would naturally help. What is this now? Mu Xingxian was naturally very embarrassed. He hurriedly apologized to Qi Xianxian, Miss Qi, I'm sorry. Don't be angry. Rochuan is seriously injured, and her mind might be a little muddled right now. Don't lower yourself to her level, okay? Confused? Qi Xianxian roared angrily. I think she's more clear-headed than anyone else. What the hell? My Jojo wants to harm her? Who did she think she was? Is it worth dirtying Jojo's hands? Miss Xianxian. Dou Fengmian hurriedly came forward to mediate. Miss Xianxian, it's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. Miss Mu is also, don't say anything. Qi Xianxian waved her small hand and scolded angrily, in the future, don't come looking for me for anything related to her. Do whatever you want. Whoever wants to come here and be scolded by her can come. Miss Xianxian. Dou Fengmian hurriedly dodged to block her path and sincerely pleaded, Miss Xianxian, Miss Mu is a seriously injured patient. It's not appropriate to argue with her. Who wants to argue with her? Anyway, it's her fault for scolding me, Jojo. Qi Xianxian revealed her sharp claws and sneered, Why don't you take a look at yourself? Who has the time to harm her? What good is there in harming her? Big brother, chase her away. Chase her away. This crazy woman. Chase her away. Mu Rochuan suddenly screamed in agitation. Chapter 3088. She's here to harm me. She's sent by Arbor to harm me. They all want to harm me. None of them want me to have a good life. Ever since she returned to China, I haven't had a good day. I've been living in fear every day, afraid that she will replace me one day. Why did she come back? Why? If she didn't come back, nothing would have happened. Mu Rochuan screamed angrily. She picked up a cup beside her and threw it in Qi Xuanxuan's direction. Bam! The cup fell at Qi Xuanxuan's feet and shattered into pieces. Qi Xianxian raised her head and glared at Mu Xingxian angrily. Mu Xingxian, let me ask you. When she was in your Mu family, you treated my Qiao Qiao like this, didn't you? Mu Xingxian was momentarily stunned by the question. Your whole family scolded her for being unnecessary? Your whole family didn't want her to come back? Your whole family was fighting with her red eyebrows and green eyes? Is that right? Is that right? Qi Xianxian asked angrily through gritted teeth. Mu Xingxian, I'm asking you a question. Answer me immediately. Qi Xianxian shouted hysterically. Her eyes were spitting fire, and the veins on her neck were popping out. Miss Xianxian. Dou Fengmian hurriedly went forward to grab her arm. Qi Xianxian flung his hand away and said angrily, All of you outsiders, get out of my way. Mu Xingxian, answer me. I want you to answer me now. Qi Xianxian asked coldly. When Jojo returned to the Mu family, they were all in seclusion on Paradise Planet, so they didn't know the details. When they came out of seclusion, Jojo was collecting compensation here and there, so they felt that she didn't lose out. After that, they heard Jojo talk about it briefly, so they didn't know that there were so many details. Jojo was a person of few words. She would only talk to you if you asked her. Moreover, she would only tell you the good news and not the bad news. She probably wouldn't say a word about such bad news. Mu Xingxian didn't know how to respond to Qi Xuanxuan's question. Qi Xianxian glared at him. Mu Xingxian, why aren't you saying anything? She's superfluous. If she hadn't tried so hard to return to the Mu family, would so many things have happened to our Mu family? Ever since she came back, my father, mother, me, and big brother, none of us have been happy. She shouldn't have come back. Shut up. Mu Xingxian turned to glare at Mu Rochuan and scolded, What nonsense are you spouting? When have I ever been unhappy? Sure. Mu Xingxian, so this is how you act as a big brother. Qi Xianxian understood something and was so angry that her eyes turned red. Don't think that just because you're Jojo's brother, you can let her suffer for no reason. Qi Xianxian was so angry that her head hurt and her eyes turned red. She felt uncomfortable all over. Let me tell you, Jojo wasn't raised in the Mu family's courtyard since she was young. But she has parents and brothers who love her since she was young. She doesn't lack a single thing that she wants. She doesn't need any charity from the Mu family. Don't think that the Mu family is high and mighty. The people who want to love Jojo can line up from Du Chunjiang all the way to the imperial capital of China. Your existence is meaningless. Chapter 3089. When they were making things difficult for you just now, who was the one who asked me to come over? Mu Xingxian, do you really not understand, or are you pretending not to understand? Jojo didn't want you to be in a difficult position. She was always thinking of you, but what about you? What did you give her? You're just going to let this woman slander me like this? What kind of big brother are you? You don't deserve to be a big brother. Qi Xianxian kicked the stool at the door and turned to leave angrily. Miss Xianxian. Mu Xingxian panicked and called out, wanting to chase after her. Big brother, big brother. Mu Rochuan cried out in shock. Big brother, don't chase after her. Let her go, big brother. She's here to harm me, big brother. Stop arguing. Mu Xingxian pressed his forehead tiredly and looked at Mu Rochuan disappointedly. Rochuan, you've been so outstanding since you were young. The entire family has always had high hopes for you. But even so, you shouldn't lose your sense of normalcy. Ask yourself honestly, would Jojo really come to harm you? Mu Xingchen sighed and shook his head. Many times, it's indeed very difficult to admit that others are outstanding. But only when you admit that others are outstanding can you clearly see your own shortcomings. We can work hard, fight for it, struggle for it, and create new brilliance. However, jealousy will make you look ferocious. It will make you unable to see your own heart clearly. Big brother, what are you saying? Mu Roxuan's eyes widened as if she was about to die. She panted heavily and sobbed as she said, Big brother, I'm not jealous. Why would I be jealous of that woman? Why should I be jealous of her? Me? I'm the real eldest miss of the Mu family. I'm the pride of the family, my parents, and my big brother. I'm the future hope of the entire Mu family. Why should I be jealous of a village girl from a small mountain village in the Lower Star region? How can she compare to me? Mu Xingchen looked at Mu Roxuan with increasing disappointment. Is this what you really think? Usually, when Mu Roxuan didn't say anything, he really didn't know that she actually thought this way. Mu Xingchen expressed his disappointment in this younger sister of his. So it turned out that she had never accepted Jojo. She had always held on to that thought, hoping that Jojo would never appear, or even come back. Qi Xianxian was right. He really didn't know how to be a big brother. Have a good rest. Mu Xingchen glanced at her and turned to leave. Mu Roxuan shouted again, Big brother, big brother, big brother, are you going to abandon me and my mother for that woman? Did you believe a bunch of lies from that woman? Big brother, big brother. Roxuan, Jojo is my sister. This fact will never change. Mu Xingchen turned his head and stared straight at the pale-faced Mu Roxuan. I know there's some misunderstanding between you and her. I won't force you to get along with her. But I hope you can do one thing. In front of me, don't say things like that about my sister. Otherwise, I won't know how to face you in the future. Mu Roxuan's eyes were filled with tears as she muttered to herself, Big brother, you really don't want me for her. You really think that she's better than me. You think that she can replace me one day. You must all think so. Chapter 3090. Mu Xingchen stepped out of the spirit tool cabin and took a deep breath before exhaling again. He then rushed toward the camp with large strides. The Dou brothers looked at each other in dismay, then at each other. Fuck, what kind of drama was this? Her eldest brother had already left? Then there really was no need for them, outsiders, to continue staying here, right? Yet they were just going to abandon the half-dead Mu Roxuan here? They couldn't really do it. Dou Fenghua glanced at her eldest brother, Dou Fengmian, with a headache. I'll go to the camp to find young Master Mu. Miss Mu's matter must be resolved. Could it be that they were really going to abandon this Miss Mu? After Qi Xianxian exited the spirit tool cabin, she was angered to tears by her emotions. She fiercely wiped her tears and walked toward the camp with an indignant expression. As her eldest brother, Mu Xingchen didn't dote on his sister, but she did. Xianxian, you're back. Come quickly, I left some food for you. I'm not eating anymore. She was already full from anger, so how could she still eat? Qi Xianxian glanced at them dispiritedly before returning to her own tent. With a swoosh, she pulled down the curtain. Everyone looked at each other in dismay and stared at each other. She couldn't have been bullied by Mu Roxuan again, right? Mo Lien asked with a frown. I told you not to go. Duan Yu also grumbled. Something must have happened since she came back with a belly full of anger. Sir Jojo silently picked up a small plate and strode toward the tent with his short legs. I'll go check on her. Xianxian. The little fellow poked her head in from outside the curtain and peeked at Qi Xianxian, who was silently leaning against the cushion. Qi Xianxian glanced sideways at the small figure that sneaked in from outside the curtain. She was both amused and annoyed, so she simply turned her head away and ignored her. I left several pieces of red braised meat for you. Eat them. The little fellow sat cross-legged next to her and nudged her waist. It's quite delicious. Little Fatty's culinary skills have improved greatly. Qi Xianxian snorted and raised her hand to the back of her head. She saw that the ceiling was still ignoring her. Jojo put down the plate in his hand and subconsciously tapped his fingers together. Tell me, what's the matter? Qi Xianxian got up from the cushion and poked her head. That Mu Roxuan, she's already treated you like this. Why are you still concerned about that Mu Xingqian? Do you want to suffer? If I had known that she would scold you like that, would I have treated her? I'd rather stab her a few more times. Who the hell was she? Do you still think that you're omnipotent and that you're dead? When I went over, she pointed at my nose and scolded me, saying that I was your accomplice. She even said that I was sent by you to harm her. There must be something wrong with her brain. What a fool. The little guy nodded his little head like a chick pecking at rice. He blinked and said, then we won't go to her place in the future. I know you don't want to make things difficult for Mu Xingqian. But look at him. Is there a big brother like him? Instead of protecting his sister properly, he keeps letting her get scolded. What's the matter with him? You don't owe him anything. He's just an honest and considerate person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been deceived by his bullshit father for so many years and even thought that his father was a righteous and good person. I don't think he's honest and considerate. There's something wrong with his brain. Qi Xianxian scolded in annoyance. Chapter 3091. If he dares to bully you like this again, I'm telling you, I'm not done with him. Qi Xianxian slapped the cushion and said angrily, I can't beat him, so I'll find Fatty and the others to beat him up together. Alright. Arbor climbed onto her cushion and hugged her arm, swinging it back and forth. Why are you still angry with him? I can't stand it when he treats you like that. Qi Xianxian became angrier as she spoke. Arbor took out a meat bun and stuffed it into her mouth. Try this. I especially saved it for you. It's delicious. Qi Xianxian naturally couldn't continue scolding with the bun stuffed in her mouth. She chewed hard and reached out to take the bun. As she ate, she mumbled, I don't know what's wrong with that Mu Roxuan. Does she think everyone has the leisure to harm her? How much money does she think she has? If I harm her, will I be able to get money or something? The little stoic nodded her small head repeatedly. Our Xianxian can crush her with money. Isn't that so? Younger sister, Miss Qi, are you inside? Mu Xingqian's voice came from outside the tent. Qi Xianxian felt irritated whenever she heard his voice now. She rolled her eyes and said, What do you want? Miss Qi, Roxuan was in the wrong for making you angry just now. I apologize to her and you. Qi Xianxian muttered softly to Arbor, Who wants it? Miss Qi, Mu Xingqian called out again. Qi Xianxian rolled her eyes and snorted coldly. Mu Xingqian, if you really treat Xiao Xiao as your sister, then you should cut off all ties with those brain-dead people as soon as possible. Don't get involved with them so many times that it's unclear. You don't take our Jojo seriously when you have nothing to do, and you don't treat carrots as vegetables. You look for our Jojo to resolve any trouble you encounter. What do you take our Jojo for? A substitute? None of you Mu family members are good. I'm telling you. If your Mu family doesn't want her, then it's fine. Stay far away from her and scram. Don't freaking say she's unnecessary. She has us. We all need her. If she's superfluous, then everyone in your Mu family is superfluous. Mu Xingqian knew that Qi Xianxian was currently in a fit of anger, so he hurriedly replied in a low voice, Miss Qi, Ro Xian is muddle-headed from her illness. Her words don't count. Grandpa had been looking for Jojo for so many years. He had always been looking forward to Jojo's return. No one said that Jojo is redundant. Don't listen to Roxuan's nonsense. Arbor quickly tugged at Qi Xuanxuan's hand. Qi Xianxian angrily sat upright and still. She turned her head to look in the direction of the tent and said indifferently, Remember what you said today. If you dare to mistreat my Jojo again because of the Mu family, I won't let you off. I understand, Miss Qi. I will reflect on what happened today, Mu Xingqian quickly said. Jojo, I hope you won't be angry with Big Brother, okay? Big Brother, I'm not angry, Arbor said helplessly. If she really had the time to be angry with someone like that, she wouldn't have agreed to let Xianxian remove the lightning spirit from Mu Roxian's body. Instead, it made Xianxian angry. When she came back, she was so angry that she didn't even want to eat her favorite food. Qi Xianxian snorted. Then she smacked her lips and chewed on the half-bun in her hand. She mumbled, "Jojo, do you believe him? Can he really change?" Chapter 3092. Arbor couldn't help but look at her helplessly. Mu Xingqian's nature is not bad. Otherwise, she wouldn't have forgiven him back then. It was just that this child only knew how to cultivate and draw talismans since he was young. He didn't interact with many people normally. He definitely couldn't see through people's hearts more clearly than Arbor, who had lived 2 lives. This was human nature. Since Arbor accepted him as her big brother, she would tolerate all of his small flaws. Putting yourself in his shoes, Mu Rochuan grew up with him. Even if they weren't close, she's still his sister. He wouldn't let go so easily. Qi Xianxian pursed her lips, not saying anything. "All right, quickly wash up after eating. Sleep early today. We'll set off tomorrow." Sir Jojo patted her shoulder and smiled at her. "Wait until we enter the mystic realm. I'll make you rich." Qi Xianxian was stunned. Then she couldn't help but laugh out loud. Seeing the little fellow run out of her tent, she shook her head and poured out all of the resentment in her heart. She was like this. When it was time to scold someone, she would scold them. After scolding them, she would fall asleep. When she woke up tomorrow, she wouldn't remember anything. Qi Xianxian was about to wash up, but her hands paused. Did her Jojo smile at her just now? When Xiaomu returned to her tent, she saw that there was only a small lamp inside, its luster faintly discernible. Mo Lian was leaning against the couch with a book in his hands. When he saw her enter, he stared at her. Arbor quickly ran over and patted his hand. "I'll go wash up first. Wait for me." What she said the Crown Prince's thoughts were inexplicably distant, and he didn't know where she had led his thoughts to. After the little fellow finished washing up, she ran back and snuggled under the blankets. Mo Lian smiled and hugged her. "Do you have anything to say to me?" "I'm so sleepy." She raised her hand and yawned. She snuggled into his embrace and said softly, "I comforted Xianxian just now. I comforted her so much that my saliva almost dried up." "Stop tormenting me." Mo Lian smiled and reached out to dry her wet hair. She looked down at her and said, "In the future, let's not meddle in other people's business. In this world, not everyone knows how to repay kindness. There are a lot of ungrateful people, especially those who are inherently bad. No matter what we do, we can't change their minds. Most of the time, rejection is not a bad thing." Mr. Jojo stretched out his hand and yawned. He glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. "Stop nagging. Go to sleep." "Why are you sleeping? Talk to me for a while." "I'm so tired." Mr. Jojo snuggled into his arms and reached out to hold his waist. Suddenly, he retracted his hand and looked up at him. "You've lost weight." The size of her waist seemed to have narrowed again. It seemed that Jojo's lotus had lost weight because of how busy he had been. He had to feed him more delicious food tomorrow and fatten him up again. "Jojo, you're always touching me secretly." Prince Simo smiled and winked. "You're even secretly measuring my size here and there." Sir Jojo looked at him expressionlessly and then covered his head with the blanket. His fist could not help but reach out and beat him fiercely under the blanket. "Brat, don't think that I can't understand your dirty words." Chapter 3093. The next morning, Holy Sun Mi Yen reorganized the team and did a head count. He then nodded and said, "There are 32 people from the Royal Academy on this trip. Not a single one is missing. Fire Refining City and Ice Sealing City are also complete. Flying Sword Academy and Blue Ocean Academy each lost a student. We don't know if they're still alive. The Dafeng tribe and the other tribes are also fine. The remaining itinerant cultivators are also unharmed. Overall, this is considered a great fortune amidst misfortune." Holy Sun Mi Yen concluded and then said to everyone, "Now, we will start crossing the Red River Canyon. There are many poisonous insects and snakes in the canyon, and there will also be large spirit beasts lying in ambush. Everyone, pay attention to your feet. because some of our teammates only returned to the team last night. After a mere night of rest, they probably haven't fully recovered yet. Therefore, we should be considerate of these teammates and take care of them a little. Let these teammates who only returned yesterday walk in the middle of the team, Holy Sun Mi Yen said seriously. This Holy Sun will lead the team and lead the way. Eldest young Master Do, please travel with this Holy Sun. I'll have to trouble Crown Prince Lien and Your Highness Prince Chen to guard the back of the team together. Lord Holy Sun turned to look at Mo Lien and Duan Yu and nodded slightly. The two of you are the cultivators with the highest cultivation besides this Holy Sun. Please use your divine conscience to observe the surrounding environment at all times. If there are any abnormalities, inform everyone as soon as possible. Arbor couldn't help but roll her eyes when she heard this. She thought, this Lord Holy Sun is really very friendly. He was already very used to ordering Mo Lien and Duan Yu around now. Prince Mo and Duan Yu rolled their eyes at Lord Holy Sun at the same time. Lord Holy Sun instantly felt a bit stifled. As for Qiao, little junior sister won't be separated from us. Liang Qingqing quickly strode up to Qiao Mu's side and picked up her small body. We're in the same team. No matter what, we have to walk together. The little fatty also quickly nodded. This time, it was Lord Holy Sun's turn to roll his eyes and grumpily rebuke them. I didn't want her to be separated from you guys. What I mean is, Miss Qiao's situation is a bit special. Her legs are short, so it won't be easy for her to walk. You have to pay more attention to her. This was a no-fly zone. If he fell while walking, he would be scolded by a group of people. Your whole family has short legs. Your Sun Moon Temple has short legs. The little girl glared angrily. Everyone was speechless. Pooh! Ha-ha! Liang Qingqing held back her laughter and carried the little girl to the middle of the group. Little junior sister, let's ignore him. His legs were too short. You're already a short person, yet you're still mocking others. But everyone was speechless. The Holy Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He couldn't be bothered to deal with these holy concubines, so he turned around and led everyone out of the camp. The group walked down the mountain path. The further they walked, the lower the terrain became. The Holy Sun was still very familiar with this place, so after leading the group for an entire morning, they basically did not encounter any danger. Apart from a few ignorant spirit beasts that tried to attack them and were killed by them in the end, nothing else happened. They rushed all the way forward. In order to save time, they didn't set up camp to cook at noon. In any case, with their cultivation, it wouldn't be much of a problem for them to go hungry for half a month. Chapter 3094. As for those with lower cultivations who wanted to eat, they just took out some dry rations from their inner worlds and casually filled their stomachs. Lord Qiao Qiao lay on senior sister Liang's back and fell into a deep sleep. She was woken up by the sound of raindrops. When he looked up, he saw round raindrops floating down from the sky. They gradually formed a line and grew heavier as they fell. Only the sound of flowing water could be heard on the ground. The rain is too heavy. We have to find a place to hide first. Although the saint had activated the defensive barrier, everything was still a little blurry due to the rain falling on them. Arbor had also taken out an umbrella from his inner world and held it above Liang Qingqing's head. Everyone thought it was a very simple umbrella at first, but when they freaking took a closer look, this umbrella actually automatically deflected all the raindrops. Under the umbrella, Liang Qingqing and Arbor were completely untouched by the rain. Not even a wisp of mist drifted toward them. Some knowledgeable people couldn't help but fuck in their minds. How was this an ordinary umbrella? This was a spirit weapon. Fuck, he didn't know which crazy weapon refiner had actually forged an umbrella into a spirit artifact for no reason. This umbrella, it can't be some offensive weapon of mass destruction, right? Someone felt that they had probably guessed the truth. If it wasn't an offensive weapon of mass destruction, then it was too wasteful. What offensive weapon of mass destruction? That's just an umbrella. A weapon refiner from the Flying Sword Academy lifted his sunken chin up again. He said to them exasperatedly, "From my 20 years of weapon refinement experience, this umbrella's greatest use is to block the rain." What a dunce weapon refiner. Such excellent weapon refinement skills, but he actually used it to block the rain. I thought it was a weapon that looked like an umbrella. Everyone's face involuntarily darkened. Duan Yu couldn't resist chuckling. He cast a sidelong glance at Mo Lien beside him and mocked, "Dunce weapon refiner." Mo Lien. At this time, Holy Sun Mi Yen had already staggered over to Mo Lien and Duan Yu's side. He said to them through the torrential rain, "The rain is too heavy. I think everyone can't hold on much longer. Let's find a place to rest first." Mo Lien looked up at the towering stone walls on both sides of the river, then at the narrow path they were on. She shook her head firmly. "We have to leave this path as soon as possible. We can't rest. But there isn't even any shelter here. If we were to set up camp, it would take at least an hour. An hour is more than enough for us to leave this narrow path. There's not much further ahead. We have to go." Duan Yu nodded. "Let everyone overcome it." Lady Jojo carried her umbrella and laid on senior sister Liang's back. She looked a little listless. "Why aren't we leaving yet?" The saint went to discuss some matters with Crown Prince Lien and the others. "I can't walk anymore." A Flying Sword Academy student who had just been fished up from Du Chunjiang yesterday couldn't resist sitting on the ground in the torrential rain. He held his head and cried, "My entire body feels weak. I feel like I'm floating when I walk." Meanwhile, Mo Lien and Duan Yu had also walked up with the saint at this time. Prince Mo reached out to take the little fellow from Liang Qingqing's back. He held her in his arms and said aloofly, "Up to you. Anyway, we have to leave. If you want to set up camp here, feel free to do so." Chapter 3095. The Holy Sun quickly said to the two of them, "Speak properly if you have something to say. Aren't we in the middle of a discussion right now?" Duan Yu grumbled, "You guys frequently traverse this path, so you should know. There's a narrow path ahead. Can't you find a place to rest after exiting there? If you can't walk, then crawl. If you can't crawl, then stay here and wait for death. No one needs to be responsible for your lives. Your lives are your own, so you should consider your own choices." Mo Lien apathetically threw down these words and directly carried his Jojo, walking forward. Little Fatty and the others didn't say anything unnecessary. They consciously followed their footsteps and walked forward together. Arbor waved his small hand, and a small bottle landed in front of the person slumped on the ground with a thud. Do Fengmian hastily stepped forward and picked up that bottle. She opened it and sniffed, and a faint, joyful expression appeared on her face. "It's a medicine that recovers physical strength. The effects are very good. Everyone who was fished up yesterday should take one." The person slumped in the rain quickly straightened up upon hearing this. Holy Sun Mi Yen also breathed a sigh of relief. Before entering the mystic realm, he didn't want any unforeseen circumstances to occur. "What are you doing?" A deep rebuke attracted everyone's attention. The Holy Sun and the rest turned to look and saw a Blue Ocean Academy student summoning a sizable spotted leopard from the mystic beast space and flipping over to sit on it. That Blue Ocean Academy student said, "I'm just finding a mystic beast for transportation. What's with such a big reaction? Who doesn't have a mystic beast, a spirit beast, or what?" A temple priest couldn't resist furiously rebuking, "Do you think we all don't know how to find a spirit beast for transportation? Our Sun Moon Temple has traversed this path for so many years. When have we ever summoned a spirit beast for transportation?" That Blue Ocean Academy student scowled. "I was just fished out of the water yesterday, and I'm about to die from exhaustion. What's wrong with finding a mystic beast for transportation now? Is this worthy of being scolded by you guys?" After saying that, he patted that leopard's head. That leopard roared and scuttled out like it was flying, rushing ahead of the narrow path with a rumble. Sir Holy Sun's expression couldn't help but darken. "This idiot!" The temple priest was so angry that his face turned pale. "Let's go! Let's go!" Arbor heard the sound of something running. He turned around and saw a leopard baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It was running towards them at full speed. Mo Lien naturally noticed this as well, and he tightened his grip on Xiao Xiao's arm as he leaned to the side to avoid a path. The piebald leopard carried the student from the Blue Ocean Academy all the way to the front. Just as they were about to exit the narrow passage, suddenly, huge rocks rolled down from the left side of the rock wall. The boulders rolled down very quickly. At first, it was only 1 or 2 boulders, but when the piebald leopard ran to the entrance of the narrow path, the boulders on both sides rumbled and rolled towards his feet. That student's expression abruptly changed. Riding on the piebald leopard, he jumped and dodged the attack of a few boulders. While he was dodging to the side, several black vines wound out from behind the boulders and swept towards the mystic beast's 4 limbs. The piebald leopard's jumping speed was very fast. However, the vines gathered more and more, as if they had drilled out from the ground. Baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, they rolled towards them, making that Blue Ocean Academy student's hair stand on end. Not good, that student's heart jumped. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.